Greetings, gamers, and welcome to the 90-second to the 90-second live stream for the Misfit Gamer Studios. I'm your host, Vortex, and this is D&D Discussions. On today's episode of Homebrew Review, we have the Scales of Equal Offering, a spell focus submitted by CosmycPurge. So we're going to be taking a look at this, seeing what else it can do outside of its spell focusy major components, and we're going to be seeing how well we react to it. But first, we're just going to kind of have a couple updates for you. Just kind of have a little chit chat as we do. How's it going, my friend?
Shalom, shalom, my friends. Welcome back. Happy to be here, back in the studio. Love me some homebrew review, as always.
Absolutely. Yeah. So I think obviously, first thing, what happened on Friday? On Friday? I got sick. Yeah, I ended up getting food poisoning like halfway through Friday. And that just basically totaled my entire weekend. I spent the whole weekend recovering. I didn't. Yeah, I wasn't. I still haven't even logged into the Discord. I've been just all day today since I woke up has either been chores around the house or just mostly just working all day. But yeah. 100%. So it's like after that it was just I haven't had time to do anything all weekend. I've been so bored out of my mind, but unable, not just physically, but mentally to do anything.
It's you drained, man.
Exactly.
It sucks it out of you.
Because it was like, I've had food poisoning before, but it's always different. Every single time it's a different experience. And this one, it was obviously all worse on Friday. And then just Saturday and Sunday were just like attempting to do anything just leveled me. I mean, I couldn't really I couldn't even play video games. The only thing I really had the energy to do was sit there and watch YouTube. And I was bored out of my mind.
You're like, I can't.
But it was the only thing I had energy for, and I was just like,
I've 100% been there, man. That it's not fun.
Yeah, it was rough. So, but you recover from such things and you move on. I would say I don't know if it's worse, but honestly, what bugs me, like obviously now that I'm better, what bugs me more about having gotten sick is, the numbering scheme of the episodes now is off, and you have no idea. You have no idea.
Sadness, Everdeen.
You have no idea how close I came to canceling this episode just for that. Like, I don't know if you guys understand how I'm never going to I'm going to pray. You have no idea how much I'm going to pray that something happens in the next week or two just to reset the clock so I can get back to the number scheme, because I was loving it.
What if this is just a possibility?
So upset.
We could do a bonus episode that would get us back on track. Like maybe at some point in time, for some reason,
just add in an episode, so at least
it'll bump it back the other direction.
It just everything was going like the number of episodes, the counter, Mondays and Fridays, how it was always easy to know what episode it was.
It was beautiful.
It's gonna bug me.
It was nice.
It's not gonna matter for anything because it's just the VODs. Who actually I only number them for our organization. Literally, I do it for, it's kind of like deep cut because I've literally done it since episode 1. So for anybody who actually either watches the VODs that are going to be edited on YouTube, or the people who are actually here at the beginning, it's going to kind of just be a deep cut for them of just if you're here, you hear it. But yeah, it's just still going to annoy me. It's going to be a personal annoyance forever. I'm just like, it was so perfect. So perfect. Started at 51, 52, and then and now we're off. That's what happens. That's what happens, people, when you get sick.
Whatever.
All right, kids, that's your lesson. Don't get sick. Stay in school.
Don't get sick. Exactly.
Anyway. But yeah, other than that, what's going on? We got a lot of people in chat. Serotonin and Cosmic. What is going on, y'all? Serotonin, I don't even know the last time we saw you. I am so glad that you were able to catch the stream today. Cosmic, I know you've been waiting for your item. We all know you've been waiting for your item. You know you've been waiting for your item. And we are going to get to it today, finally.
Oh, we doing it.
Had a question in the DM chat. Sorry, I have not gotten into the Discord at all weekend. I will get to that tomorrow. just give me till tomorrow, and I will get to that question. I have failed in my duties as that DM for the Discord.
Recovery time is important, okay? You got to get yourself tip top. That's when you're going to give your brain juices the best time to flow and actually say the things you want to say anyways.
Yeah. But yeah, I will get into that. It's about a con save against poison condition. Ooh, that's going to be a good one. I haven't actually looked that up in quite a minute. I did a couple months ago, but it was for a completely different reason. So
interesting.
Yeah, I don't know why I looked that up, but I think it was for. I think I looked it up because I was watching like a YouTube, or I think I was watching a YouTube short, and it had something to do with that, and so I had to look it up, but I don't know why. Now, that's interesting. That's the problem with working memory. I don't have it.
Whatever, it's fine.
So. Let's see what other we have. A couple other things that I wanted to announce, though, guys. So I've had a lot of time to think this weekend too, because it was like the only thing I could do is just sit there and dwell on YouTube videos, which kind of gave me the idea for what's going to be happening here soon. So I think this month I am going to officially invest in probably a month or two, because they do a monthly subscription. They also do a yearly, but I'm not ready to invest that much just yet until I'm skilled. But I am going to be investing into Adobe Premiere Pro. It's a monthly subscription, so I'll be getting that at least to just try my hand, teach myself a little bit of video editing, and see what I can do. See if I can make some shorts. See if I can make some videos. If anything, the goal is to get an idea of what I want to see and see if I can even understand the game, or at least to get an idea so when I do hand it off to an editor, I can kind of give them an idea, a vision that they can say, hey, I see what you're getting at, but here's what you need to do with it, right? Like, because that's eventually what I'm going to need. I'm not going to become a great editor. I know I need to start somewhere, so it's going to have to start with me. But the goal is to find someone who can edit for me, who kind of understands the vision and understands also the landscape. Because those are the two different things, right?
Yeah.
What I want to get across and what wants to be received do not always mix, and I need someone in that middle ground who can take
that is a very
who can blend those two,
invaluable balance to come to. So
and when we get there, I don't know. That's why I kind of want to start with the clips. I think clips, I made that channel in the Discord.
That's gonna be very cool.
I think that's gonna be really fun. I'm gonna start posting in there a lot because I've also recently started while I'm working. I will just download and listen to the old stream or this stream. I've just started episode 1. I've already I did 2 episodes today. I just listened to it on like either 1.5 or 1.75 and just kind of have it on in the background, just enough to keep in mind what topic we're talking about or things that we're saying. And anytime it just triggers like I kind of like that, or something I would like to distill out of that episode. I'll just kind of pause it, figure out what timestamp that was within, and that's kind of it. I'll just notate that for later. But I was thinking more on it, and I'm pretty sure YouTube has a clip function where you can actually just sit there and hit a button and it'll let you edit out or just make a clip of it. So I don't know if I'll be able to do that while I'm working, because it's easier to just notate, see where I'm listening, notate the time frame, and then move and just keep listening.
Yeah.
But it will be nice later, in the afternoons when I can just sit here in the office.
Get to that point, clip.
Exactly. Point, and then I'll see if I can turn those into anything, because I know that first step, shorts should be relatively easy. You just got to find something, scale it out right, and put visualized moving captions. As long as the captions are captivating and you got the video cropped right, a short's a short. Most people, I think, I'm not going to worry too much about how much I put editing wise into it at first. It's more about, again, the voice. It's about the capture, right? It's about, did you hear what I said and did you like what I said? Because I'm hoping for the shorts to be more of an awareness builder, because we're not going to grow immensely on Twitch. That's going to be where that growth comes from. So I'm thinking that start out with shorts, start out with little pieces of things that we've said, and then maybe eventually grow into a 10-minute video. And eventually, and again, that 10-minute video is more or less just going to be a live stream edit.
Right.
It's not going to be a whole lot.
That's kind of a vibe,
I mean, well, and it is. Oh God, it's so funny. So this is 92 episodes. This is hilarious, guys. Re-listening to episode 1 was so weird. We might have to do this for maybe that an extra episode or something, but rewatching that one of our old streams would be hilarious, because listening to the shit that I was saying at episode 1 and just what we're doing now and the things that we say now. And I'm just like, it's weird to hear myself parroted over a year ago, just parroted and mirrored all of this time. And it's just it's hilarious the things
It's
that
beautiful thing, consistency, man.
Yeah, it was funny. I was just listening to it. I wish I could remember any specific quotes, but I was just listening to myself, and I'm just like, wait, that's exactly what we're doing now. Or just the ideas that we had, or the things that I wanted to come across, to build this for. And it's like, yeah, no, we're sticking to all of that. So it is just really nice to see that we really haven't changed much from my original plan and my original idea, but it's going to be amazing to see what happens in another 100 episodes.
That's what's up.
Questions about a gold dragonborn. Oh, okay. Wow. So I'm going to have to do some research. I'm going to have to do... This question's going to be more specific to like a gold dragonborn. So that's even more research I'm going to have to do about like the racial features of that one.
Yeah. I'm not sure. I'd have to consult the table. Consult the dragon table.
But yeah, so my plan will be to post, a couple clips that I'm doing. I'll clip those things from YouTube, and I'll probably be posting them in the Discord in that clips channel. Just to kind of keep, lead by example. I always like to try to use the channels that I've used or made. But another reason too is I kind of want to leave that channel. That channel is going to intentionally be different than the other like submission channels, right? Like for the most part, the submission channels, the topics, the questions for the stream are meant to just kind of be, submitted, and then we'll kind of categorize them and figure out when we can, get to them.
Right.
And those are meant to be, if people want to talk about them in the Discord, they have the community channel and all of that. But those are, designed to
not
be
really
more isolated,
yeah.
for the stream. So again, no spoilers, no pre-conversations, meta conversations, things like that. But this one's going to be a little bit different because while I don't really want people chatting in this particular channel, unless there's like some sort of like description or reasoning behind it, like, but I just don't want like conversations happening.
Right.
But I do want this channel to be open to everybody at all times. So unlike the other channels where you can't see what's been posted, this one is going to be a little bit more where you're going to see all of the history. And it's intentional for the sense that I do kind of want to see what how like people react to them. Like, if someone says, hey, in this 5-minute section, they're, edit out some of like the things. Cause like, that's what I'm doing, right? I was like, I'll find a 5-minute section, but I'm like, there's really only like 2 or 3 minutes worth of good stuff, but it's in this whole 5 minutes, right?
Right.
So it's like being able to like post that and then just have people, instead of comment on it, just like use the reactions. Just like positive, negative reactions. And then that way being able to get a sense of, what the community is interested in. If someone posts a clip and a bunch of people in the community are like, this is a really awesome thing, I'm probably going to be like, hey, let me throw that into a YouTube short right away. Because obviously everybody thinks that that's like a great clip for that. So that's kind of what I want to do is like, if I post something, I want your guys' feedback a little bit more on that channel. Instead of it being a give us ideas so we'll figure it out, this one is definitely more going to be a channel about the community. It's going to be more about what does the community think about these cuts and these clips. And I'm hoping to also just encourage people more to not necessarily go and rewatch the old episodes, but when we're talking here, when we're live, and you guys like just hear something that would be cool, or you would like to just take out of just this whole, this whole episode, definitely encouraging, more clips to be made, just so we can kind of get an idea of what people want to hear, what people are interested in, and what are, the most interesting aspects people take, out of all of our tangents and, random discussions. So. So that's going to be a whole lot of fun. Then I still have to figure out the naming scheme. I know we're going to be having a conversation on whether or not we change some of the naming schemes that we have, but I think that's still off a little bit in the future. And
we'll get there.
Yeah, but I think right now everything's on pace to be exactly where it needs to be.
Yeah, for sure.
But yeah, so I think that's mainly it. Is I'm just going to be going through trying to find more clips. I'll be posting those in the clips channel, hoping that you guys give us some feedback on that. Just basically again, not really looking for conversations, but just any kind of like just using the reactions, whether or not just positive, negative reactions.
Let me know how you feel about it.
Exactly, right? And that's kind of what we're looking for is, again, getting the pulse of, as the community grows, that pulse is going to be more and more important. So trying to find ways that we can integrate it early on is kind of what we're also trying to learn to do. I'm bad at doing 100%. Polls because I don't usually have a lot of things that I need to make decisions on, like all of that fair. Often. But I do want to update at least the ones that we have. I do want to like use some of like the webhooks that you have and everything to like update the polls that we've posted before and get kind of those refreshed. Because I think those ones have run their course. We kind of know what those answers are. So
that's fair.
We'll probably retire the current polls that are out, and then hopefully we'll come up with some fresh ones.
Facts.
Yeah,
facts,
absolutely.
Facts. I'll see if I can't find notes because we've talked about on different couple of occasions on other streams. I'm like, we'll probably do a poll for this or do a poll for that. And
that's true.
Like I should probably just be keeping notes on that. On if I actually hear us talking about that as well.
Yeah, because a lot of those things are usually too far in the future, but when they come up, we'll probably end up rethinking of them to be in a poll.
At least there'll be a place for you to go to look for it when it's like, all right, like now we're at that place. Let me look for what we were talking about back then.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Oh, but anyway, so we have a really interesting one today. I'm really curious because this one's coming to us as a spell focus. Yes. So we actually did an episode on this. So I don't want to get too much into a large summary because we've already done a whole deep dive history. On the YouTube channel, we have all of our VODs. So if you guys are interested, we do have an episode called Fixing Foci. It was part of the History of series, which I have to turn all of those into a playlist, like the History of playlist, because not all of the History ofs were actually titled that. Like Fixing Foci, I think, was one of the earlier History ofs, because we did the entire history through all of the editions of what Focus was, how they changed in terms of importance and everything. So I don't want to rehash that entire episode, but I do want to kind of get us a foundation for 5th edition in terms of what is a baseline for the focus, so we can understand better how to review this item. Just because, again, not coming off of any basis, I don't want to be either too harsh or too gracious in terms of not really understanding its place in the hierarchy of things. So I'm going to run through a very basic understanding of what a focus is in 5th edition, and then I think you have an example for us of what a...
I'm going to get you one.
Okay, still looking. Yep. Okay, but hopefully by the time I'm done with that, we're hoping to get a more standard one. This one is from like Wizards of the Coast. It's actually like a standard D&D focus that is slightly above what I'm going to go through. So we just kind of want to get those baselines. So when we go through this review, we will have that understanding of of where exactly we want to start from. Kind of doing this because just like we did recently, having Kage kind of have a when we were doing the what was it? It was the
class
subclasses.
Yes.
Yeah, having the baseline class kind of on the side, letting us know how it's progressing the character, kind of gave us a better outlook. So that's kind of what I'm trying to incorporate too, is making sure that we have a equal foundation of approach. Because I know that a couple of our reviews, we've both come from way different viewpoints, and it's caused a lot of confusion. So I think this will start to help us flatten things out.
Yeah.
And be a little bit more educational, do a little bit more, well-rounding with information. So yeah, that's kind of what we want to do here. So real quick, let's get into a quick overview of the standard focus. All right. There we go. So basically a very quick review for those that are either not in the know or just want to refresh. An arcane focus, your standard focus, is basically, in short, a item that will allow a sorcerer, warlock, or wizard to replace their material component of their spell. So as based in the spell casting in the spell casting chapter, a spell focus can basically be used in lieu of a component pouch, or aka the material component that they need to use for said spell. In terms of sorcerers, warlocks, and wizards, they are limited to crystals, orbs, rods, staffs, and wands as a standard. And then, of course, if you have it listed differently in a homebrew setting, or for whatever reason, if you have I justify it, especially based on background. I love it when spell focus or something that is more personal to them.
Like a coin or something else like that.
Just something that's personalized that I would identify as, okay, tragic event imbued it with power kind of situation, right? So I'm okay with that, but I totally understand where this is coming from. And then, of course, you have druidic focuses. So I think the Sprig of Mistletoe is the standard. It's like the absolute standard for the most people's what they think of the druidic focus, but you can also have totems, a wooden staff, or the U wand or the Yi wand.
Yes. Hold on. I was trying to find a picture of that a second ago, just because I know what it is. I've seen it before because I specifically looked it up, but I cannot.
I don't think I've ever used that particular one. Let's see. Okay, so it looks like it's also just another type of specific wood.
Okay. Yeah, it's from a... Okay. Yeah, but this is the picture that I was looking for. It was these weird... Like, they were just, like, actual twigs, but they, like, had splits in certain ways, and they looked very natural, not like...
You're right. It's almost like you're holding
Harry
a branch.
Potter style. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
That makes sense. And it goes along with the Sprig of Mistletoe. So I think the U1 just made sense for, it's like, well, what if it's not mistletoe? Can I have it be pine or something like I think it was the idea of expanding it.
That's fair enough.
And then there are plenty of supplementals that we've also found where there's other specialty focus that you can get, but these are, in a sense, very similar to druidic focuses. It's just expanding what can be a focus for the nuance of spellcasters that are out there, right? It's just expanding more and more beyond, druids, sorcerers, warlocks, wizards. It's just saying that, hey, these are also types of spellcasters. They get this different selection, right? Mm-hmm. And that's pretty much all we've found so far. And that's basically all it was. So at its heart, and this is kind of going back to that episode that we did of Fixing Foci, that was one of our biggest grieves, is that it's a great idea, but it falls short in the sense that, what's to stop me from using one for 20 years and then I just drop it and pick up another one? There's no functional difference.
Yeah.
And that was kind of one of our biggest gripes, is like, really canonically, it should matter, right? You know what I mean? And so that's why I'm really curious about today's item, is to kind of understand. But you had mentioned that, because this is where I was like on the fences. This is what I know about foci, and I know that in High Point, I will allow for customized foci if certain qualifications are met, right? Like, again, you can use an item from your backstory as a foci, and then that item can technically become more powerful as you use it. I like it to work with you, kind of like, again, what we talked about in that episode.
Right.
But giving a foci, like the idea of giving a foci something different outside of this ability, was something that I've thought of, but it was also what we talked about in that episode, in terms of it had to be something that was almost like built in the sense of you chose the materials, you chose certain ways to make those things come out. So I'm open for the idea, but there is definitely a caution that I first had.
Right.
But, that this item would do more than just be a focus. But you mentioned that there are items already like this.
So, can you do me a favor real quick?
Yeah.
Go back to the page you were on, that one, where you were listing out what can be focuses. When you're looking for wizards or arcane focuses, do they list their spell book?
No, this does not technically list their spell book. That's actually interesting.
So that is what I found. What I found is an example of one. It's a fairly basic one called the Arcane Grimoire, but
that sounds familiar.
And it's specifically attunement by a wizard. This is class restricted item, but it says that this item you can use this book as a spell book. So if your spell
Okay,
book,
so the book itself is just the arcane focus, but it can be used as a spell book.
so the arcane grimoire, in addition, has other abilities.
Okay.
It says while you're holding this leather-bound book, you can cause your spellcasting focus. You can use as a spellcasting focus for your wizard spells. You gain a +1 bonus to attack and spell roll. So this is basically like a +1 short sword, but a +1 arcane grimoire.
Interesting. Okay.
You know, so it's almost like a magic version of it, but it also increases the saving throws for your wizard spells, like specifically, and it gives you an additional, I think, increases the number of spells you regain when you use your arcane recovery, so you can actually get more spells back on a short rest with it.
Yeah. So it technically, so yeah, by rule, by raw, a book technically cannot just be an arcane focus. That one would be something definitely like specific, right? Like,
yeah, it does specifically say you can use it as a spellcasting focus in this one.
And that one, and like I said, like that one definitely sets it apart. Okay, so other than being an arcane focus and being a spell book, what was the other thing that it does?
It's a +1. It gives them a +1 to their attacks and the saving throws for all their wizard spells. And
so similar to giving other, another fighter a +1, armor a +1 weapon. Basically, it's kind of an all-encompassing one to help out a wizard who maybe doesn't really need or have a lot of use of the other magical items throughout the campaign. Okay.
Correct. Additionally, wizards have an ability called Arcane Recovery, and that's during a short rest. They can do some meditation, and they can regain power that they had lost. So they can regain spell slots that they had used.
Gotcha. Okay.
And so normally you're limited to how many you can do that. This increases the number of spell slots you can get back on that rest period.
Okay. Yeah, that totally makes sense.
So that's the meat and potatoes of this item.
Okay, cool. So that, and then that's a standard like D&D spell focus out there.
Yes, that's from Cautious Cauldron of Everything.
Okay, perfect. So that's a good, I think, foundation for us to start with. So we know what a standard spell focus is meant to do. It's just there to replace the material component. That's its standard job, and it can be a myriad of things based on what you are.
Yes.
There are ones out there that can give you additional benefits. They sound pretty well balanced in terms of, again, I could see why all of those things would be wanted by a wizard, but it definitely doesn't sound like an early game item. That definitely sounds like something, beyond 5th level. You'd want that maybe after like an 8th level dungeon or something like that. You know what I mean? Like then you could start using that and working up with it after 10th level. So, okay, cool. I like that. Gives me a much better starting point for this next one. Cosmic also had a note for us for the item before we proceed. He wants us to keep in mind that today's item was inspired and adapted from a similar item from an anime. So similar to the items that we've done before, this is going to be an anime item. Clerics and Paladins have a holy symbol that doubles as spellcasting focus. That is true as well. That one. Right. Right. It does say right here, holy symbols are allowed as well for amulet, emblem, or reliquary. So I don't think I said that right.
Yeah, I don't know. That word is hard.
Okay, so absolutely. Thanks for pointing that out. But yeah, so Cosmic, what is the anime that this was inspired off of? I just don't know if I know it. I probably won't.
I watched an anime recently that had a very interesting character. This demon character had this set of scales, but I think I don't. That one was specifically you had to put like. You would measure your power between you and your opponent, and whichever one is greater, the other person is basically dominated by you. So like whoever has the greater power like dominates the other person. And it was actually a crazy scene because in this anime, like she was hiding her true power, and so
so the scales kind of revealed it.
It was just like kaboom! Like she thought she won, but then you really didn't, and she made the lady chop off her own head.
Why is that such like a trope? I mean, it just always reminds me of Bleach. Yu Yu Hakusho did it. The whole thing of like I have to stop the power from coming out, and then when it's like showtime, it's like I love that. He doesn't know the name. Damn. Interesting. Yeah. So I'm really curious what this
was called. Freerun, but
I've heard of that one. I haven't watched that one yet.
It's pretty decent. It's kind of slow, but it's a slow burn. It's a slow burn. It's a good burn, but it's a slow burn.
All right. So we got to keep in mind this is going to be a little bit of a inspired transition. So,
Okay.
there's going to be a little bit of that.
Cool,
but
cool.
we do know kind of a baseline of what to expect. Obviously, this is going to replace material components, but we should expect a pretty good balancing of what is this. I'm assuming this is for scales of equal offerings. So we'll see if it requires attunement by a spellcaster. So this is any spellcaster.
Okay.
So this
so it's
is
not class locked.
So I guess
because warlocks can have spellcasting focuses, sorcerers can have it.
well, because all of those are technically under arcane focus. So
Yes.
I'm wondering if this is considered an arcane focus, or if Cosmic. I don't know if you know. Did you intend this to be a universal focus, or is it technically an arcane focus, as in wizards, warlocks, and sorcerers?
I
You know
will
what I mean?
say,
Is it supposed to be locked
a lot of the
to spellcaster in that sense?
I will say a lot of the other stuff that I was looking at when I was trying to find an item for you. A lot of the items like wands and such like that, they do have the same restriction where it just says spellcaster and it isn't locked to a specific class. So
Right. Yeah, because I just because it's like technically it's a druid a spellcaster, so but they need a druidic focus. I'm just curious where that line draws, because they make the other focus, even though that you would call them a spellcaster. I'm not even trying to like make a ruling. I'm just really curious, what is the mindset? Is arcane focus a category of focuses, or have we just decided that doesn't matter? You know what I mean? Can anybody use any type of focus? That's what I'm just really interested in. Their scales, they should be balanced automatically.
Oh, I think that was a pun. It was very punny.
But yeah, I'm just really curious if you intended this to also be used by any type of class, or does spellcaster, I guess, mean arcane spellcasters, or does it mean all spellcasters? That's a very unique question. That's probably not a question for today, but that's a unique question that we should tackle someday. What does spellcaster? Yeah, you want to type that? You want to make that note, like just spellcaster, like what is a?
I like that. Okay,
that could just be not an episode, but that'll just be a side thing.
I'll put a note.
Any spellcaster as a legendary version has extra effects that would otherwise screw over paladins and warlocks. Interesting. Okay. Okay, so this is going to be the scales of equal offering. It is rarity varies. I thought I was reading that wrong. No, rarity varies. Does require attunement by a spellcaster, and we have this coming from CosmycPurge. Okay, so we don't have any lore right out the gate. So this is pretty neutral.
Okay.
It's just your standard spell focus. Kind of like it. A little bit of a change up from Cosmic, so I like it. So description. As a bonus action, you put at least 200 GP value on one side of the scale in the form of either a non-magical item or as raw money. The other side gives off a magical aura, the intensity of which grows the higher the value of the item offered. Or higher of the value of the offered items. Wow. Once you can see this aura, you can use an action to grant one of the following benefits in the table below to a single creature you choose that you can see within 60 feet. The chosen bonus has the following features. Okay, so painting the picture here, you have the spell focus.
Okay.
But at any point, you can put in money.
This is starting to sound familiar.
And I'm really curious how big this thing is, because a spell focus, so Cosmic, paint me a picture here. Is this one sized, or okay, is this palm size? Well, it can't be palm sized, right? One size wouldn't work. Like I'm imagining like this is either a full set of scales, so like crossbow size. Mm-hmm. Not two-handed crossbow, but I'm just thinking like or is this on the end of a staff? Is this like one of those things where it's like on the end of a pole?
That would actually be really cool.
I'm just trying to get a visual of what is my character
really
carrying around, because as cool as this may be, just already what I'm seeing is the cost benefit of carrying around like literally something that's, bigger than me, or is it a small set and you can just sit there and load? You know what I mean? Like, I'm just really trying to understand.
So
what are we looking at here?
What my vision instantly went to was like, what's the dude's name from Beauty and the Beast? The candlestick.
Oh, not Gaston. Is it Gaston?
It's not Gaston. Gaston's the bad guy.
Oh yeah, that's right, dude. It's been.
I thought the exact same thing.
Yeah, it was the French dude.
Yeah. The French candlestick, but
yeah,
that's the size I kind of feel, because I always saw the Beast waving him around and everything. And
ooh. Okay, cool. Crossbow sized. So think about like, I imagine, crossbow's about 1.5, 2 feet wide, about 1 foot,
Okay.
1.5 foot. So it's relatively large, but he does say it is on the end of a pole.
Okay.
So we
Very
are thinking,
cool. Very
so
cool.
so we are thinking, real good scales, not weights, not like a good scale size. Okay.
Okay.
So I'm thinking, yeah, because I was trying to think of like imagining, okay, how mechanically how would putting 200 gold pieces on this weight, like middle of combat, look like? And then you think of platinum, and then you think of like you could have gems. Like he did say, you can do an item of that weight. So it's most likely intended for like gems and magical items. But I really was trying to be like, I mean, I could just sit there and pummel handfuls onto it. But realistically, if I could get a whole pouch and just throw it on there, does that count? So I was trying to understand what we're doing. On the end of a pole, I also like that. I think the pole actually works.
I think that is kind of classy.
So it would be also interesting if it is a pole. I'm wondering if you could use it. What are those things called? It's the flail is the single-handed one where the stick with the balls and chains. Well, no, they're like the flail, like standard stick chain to like spike ball. But there is a version of that off of a staff, like off of a spear. It's the same type of flail. It's just off of a spear. And I don't know what they're called.
I don't know what that is either.
No. These guys, these flail spiel. What are they called? Oh, it is just the regular flail. I'm always thinking of flail with like the single-handed, like the tiny flails, but original like infantry flails like this. So I'm wondering, just throwing this out there as a side idea, because you say it's on the end of a pole. I'm wondering, could you even consider this doubling as a weapon?
Like it's a melee weapon?
Because you brought up the idea that the other one, right? The one that you brought up for the spell focus. It's a spell focus. It does these extra things, but it's also your book, right? It kind of would be kind of cool if, again, you're a paladin or whatever, and you practice spear or flail, if you were just martial weapon.
It'd be kind of cool if you could use this as your weapon as well as that would be
it's not spiked, so it'd only be bludgeoning. But I mean, if if you look at that image, like you could imagine two of those dangling off
of a little
and
crossbar.
those would just be the weights, right? Or the scales, but it would just be like kind of 2 instead of 1. So I don't know, maybe that
you could definitely make that work. You could 100% make a weapon like that work.
Yeah. So I'm just throwing that out there as a possible idea. You might even be able to turn that into a weapon, Cosmic, just based off of that description. A mace depends on how long. I guess, yeah, if it's only like a single-handed scale where you're holding the pole here and the scales go out in front of you, totally like a mace. I was just thinking like the pole was like 5-6 feet. So it's like the scale, when you held it like this, the scales were like at your eye length. But so like the pole was still kind of above you and the scales fell lower. But yeah, I'm just wondering if you would even entertain that as an idea. I think in High Point, I would allow it to be considered as a weapon if it was made out of the right material.
That's fair.
Especially if it was like a clerical gift. Like if this was from the clerics, they would be made out of like titanium or something. Like totally cool.
Why does that give me lightweight? What's the anime I'm thinking of? Inuyasha with the monk with the hole in his hand. He's got a staff that's got these rings on the top of it, and it for whatever reason gives me that vibe.
I don't remember that for some reason.
Really? He's just got this weird. It's not a wind tunnel. I don't know. He's got like a vortex. Whatever. It's weird.
Yeah. But okay. So already liking what we're seeing here. So it can do one of the following when you give it at least 200 GP. So I already like the value, right? This is definitely not an early game. I'm just going to be overpowered at level 1, because who's throwing 200 GP away in a battle, right? Like that's it, for level 20. That's not a lot, but I kind of am okay with that at level 20, right? So I think that's a good starting point for 200. But I like that you can bump it. Meaning that it doesn't matter about your level, it only matters about what you've been able to gather.
Got you.
And I like the sacrificial nature of that, right? Like if it was I need this to kill anything and everything, you might sacrifice the dragon horde for it, but it would work. Like I kind of like that potential to be a nuke. So I just really am curious how he's gonna judge like power.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
Like from 200, what is 500? What is 1,000? I'm really curious how that's going to escalate.
Okay.
So the chosen bonus has the following features. And remember, this is a bonus action.
A bonus action to
just
feed
do
it.
this, to just feed it. So I'm really curious. Yeah, so I would say, bonus action.
So I will say it's a bonus action to feed it, but then it says once you can see the aura, you have to use an action to grant one of those.
Oh, that's true. So it's a bonus to feed it at least 200 value per feeding. Is that what you mean, Cosmic? Do you mean that as every time you use your bonus action to feed it, the feed has to be at least 200?
It has to be at least.
Because it's not saying that I can't give it like 10 a bunch of times until it gets 200 every individual feed.
Well, I feel like you can give it like 1,000.
Yes, but bare minimum. So it's not like I can go, here's 100, here's 100. Now I'm at my minimum. It's no, here's 200 minimum. I cannot give it less at any one moment. And it's per bonus action. So anytime I use a bonus action to feed it, it must be of 200 value during that bonus action. That's what Cosmic just confirmed. So I like that. I like that the bonus action to feed it. I like that you need at least 200, which means you have to pre-prep that. You have to have a pouch of gold. You have to have the right platinum. You have to have the gem ready. That bonus action means you can't just sit there and shovel. You need to have it like ready to go. I like that thought through. And then the action to actually grant the bonus, I like that too. That really helps make this not so action economy dynamic, I guess. It doesn't make it too overpowered in a combat to where you're just going to dominate any situation. Okay, so choose for the bonus has the following features. Buff lasts for 1 minute until the attuned user falls unconscious or uses a bonus action to end the effect early. So buff lasts... Okay, so... Okay, one of the benefits from the table below... Oh, one of the benefits from the table below. Okay, my bad. So the chosen bonus has the following features as well. So these are additional features on top of the bonus that you choose.
Got it.
That's where I was missing. I thought this was the list. So
got it.
On top of whatever action you choose, or the bonus that you choose, the buff is going to last for 1 minute until the attuned user falls unconscious or uses a bonus action to end it.
Okay.
The buff can be done a number of times equal to your proficiency bonus or per long rest. I like that.
Okay.
The offered money or items are destroyed in the process. No magical items can be offered with the exception of potions and spell scrolls. I like the exception.
Okay.
Spell scrolls are a unique exception. I love the potion idea because I think there are plenty of potions that are pretty expensive.
Yeah, very much so.
And I guess scrolls aren't really magical. Like in essence, they aren't really magical items. So I see why those are the exception. But I like the limit. I do like the limit of magical items because that becomes really like
crazy
OP when you can just collect useless,
magic items that you find and just like use it as feed fodder or whatever.
Yeah, because they can be uber powerful, but you're like, I don't need that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, yeah. So I like that. I think that actually works to, again, help mitigate the loopholing of overuse. If you are concentrating on a spell when using this ability, the concentration is broken upon gaining the buff. Actually, I like that. For a spellcaster, I actually think that really makes this a lot more tactical in its use and a lot less I'm just going to use it at the most opportune time. Because a lot of the time, the most opportune time would also be during the wizard doing a concentration spell.
Right.
So the fact that you can't be the one everyone else is relying on in the moment that you need to be relying on everybody else, I like that flip. Because that's how I see it, right? I see this as if you're doing a concentration spell, I would say 60% of the time, it's what the team's relying on. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Most concentration spells, the team is going to help coordinate around that. So for you having to drop that to do this kind of tells me that you're kind of now flipping the script and now relying on the team because you're going to drop whatever's they're doing or they're focusing on to do what you're about to do. So I like that. I like that flip.
That's legit.
I can see a DM throwing a lot of spell scrolls that the party can use in the normal way due to them containing spells the party can use. This gives alternative use for them. And that's the other thing, too. There are so many times where I feel like spell scrolls are underutilized in terms of... And the reason why is... Because, I saw this a lot in Baldur's Gate 3. It happens so much in Baldur's Gate 3 is it tends to be that... And I saw this just so much in gaming. Spell scrolls seem to be... Unless it's a very unique, super powerful spell... spell scrolls tend to just be gold fodder, in the sense that most people either hoard them and never use them or just wait to sell them. Like, because most spellcasters, and I think the problem is most spellcasters, and we've talked about this so much, how people build their character out is they already have a plan. They already know how they want to use their character. And unless that particular spell scroll is of super duper importance or has a unique ability that they just will not be able to get with their current build, they probably already have a spell that they want better. Like, in their mind, in combat, there's little chance that they're going to be going through those spell scrolls and being like, no, they already have a plan of how they want to use their character. You know what I mean? Like, there's the trope of the fireball wizard who just always going to use fireball. Right. So why give them ice pick? Like, again, unless it's situational, unless you have someone like a sorcerer or someone who's like specializing in certain types of magic and they want these as alternatives in certain unique situations, I think most people are just like, I know what magic I want to use. I built my character to do the magic I want. These spell scrolls aren't helping me. And I think that's how most people treat them. At least in my experience, that's how I've seen a lot of people treat them.
Honestly, so I just ask my players, like, if I say they find a spell scroll and they ask what spell is it, I'm like, what spell do you want it to be?
Right, and that's fine. To be
honest, like, I'm like, because if I know I'm giving them a spell they want, then I know they're going to use it. They're going to find a reason or a way to use it. Yeah, so I'm at least hoping.
But that's why I'm really liking this alternative, because again, I think that there should be more of a mechanic for, if you don't like a magical item, other than selling it, what else can you do with it? So I like expanding upon that. So I like where Cosmic's going with it.
Facts.
Okay, so you get all of those while the spell while the buff that you get is active. Okay, so it lasts for a minute. You can do it. You can just keep stacking it up to your proficiency bonus. You do destroy you do destroy the items and money, and your concentration spells end. Okay, and here we are. Here's what I wanted to know. So for every additional 200 GP offered, so it goes up in increments of 200, the buff can be increased or split. As an example, when offering 400, you can choose either to double the bonus or to target one additional creature with the same buff. Interesting. Okay. I was worried when he said split. I was worried that he was going to say you can just keep selecting different boosts. I wasn't going to be down for that, but I like this. So if I give it a 600 GP gem, that means that I can give myself a boost twice and then give you a boost once. Because I bought 3 boosts, essentially, right? Like,
interesting. Because I thought you had to choose split.
No, it says for every additional 200 offered, the buff can be increased or split. So if I do 200, I give it to me. My next 200, I give it to you. My next 200, I double myself. Next 200, I can double you. So for every 200 increment, you get a chunk of the buff.
Okay.
Doubling it sounds a little... I'm wary about doubling it.
Okay.
Just because 200 is great early game, but why would I just be throwing 1,000 GP gems later down the road? I would literally convert all of my money that is side money into gems, right? Like,
so I could just feed
I feel like 200, if you're doubling these, and we don't know what the powers are yet, but doubling just seems already a little bit. It's the first time I'm like, seems like maybe it's gonna get out of hand.
My question is this like exponentially doubling, or is this like so in theory, if you are a rogue and you use your movement and then you use your bonus action and then you use your action all to move, like you've moved like 4 different times, right?
Yeah.
Like that, it doubles, but it just keeps adding sections of 30, so you'd only get to 90.
Exactly.
Right? And so I'm curious if that's what he's trying to say. Like, so the first time
I think that's what it should be. Definitely, that's what it should be. Not just double, but it should just be adding again. So for example, okay, so here we go. So for example, if you do the +2 AC bonus and then offered a 400 GP, you can either make that AC bonus +2 on 2 creatures or +4 on 1 creature. So what happens if I offer a 600 GP gem? What would be my options? I think that's what we're talking about. Is let's say I just throw a 600 GP gem. I know I want a buff on me and I want a buff on him. But does that mean that one of us is going to be double and then the other one's going to just be a +2? Like, is it going to be a +2 +4? So that's the first question is 600 GP gem and I want to split. But then the second question, the follow-up would that be is what happens with the 600 all to myself?
Yes.
Is it
that is
so in his example with the +2 AC, is it a +6 AC? Or is it a 2 times 2 and then the 4 times 2? Yeah. So just curious on the math there, just making sure we understand the language. So yeah, my first hesitation is just I like the 200 as a starting. Every 200, if it only just does an additive block instead of the full double, it would probably be less. So 600 GP, it would be either +6 AC on one creature or +2 to 3 creatures. Okay, or theoretically +3 to 2 creatures. Interesting. Okay, so it's an even split, period. It can either go to all one creature or it evenly splits out. You cannot... So if I did 600, I can't do 1, 2, 3. It would have to be an even split. Either I get it all, or we evenly split between the two of us.
Interesting.
So if technically 600 GP would equal a 6 AC, either I'm getting all 6, or you and I are getting 3 each. Period. Or I add in a third person, and we're all getting 2. It's still additive to 6. Yes. Okay. So it's not doubling. You're just adding the buff total again. Okay. Yeah, so you're just getting an additional buff. Yeah. But I do like that. I like that it has to be an even split in any regard. So either... Interesting.
Okay.
Yeah, so I can't min-max it. It has to be me and these people are getting this pool of buff, we're going to have an equal... I like that. Okay. That makes me feel better that it's at 200 each. I might change my mind on that one, but we'll see. We'll see what the buffs are. So the first buff, as Cosmic had hinted at, is the +2 to AC. Does not stack with other magical AC buffs, shield, magic armor, or mage armor, haste, or shield of faith. So that's interesting. So basically, how does that resolve, Cosmic? Does this overwrite what's currently... Like, let's say I have mage armor, and then I do this buff. Which one takes precedence? Does the mage armor does this cancel out the mage armor, or does the mage armor cancel this? Or is it whichever's higher?
I would generally say it's whichever's higher, because that's what I would think. Because that's the way it would be in the example of a barbarian wearing leather armor. Their natural... Their unarmored defense would be higher than their leather armor plus their dexterity bonus, because that's all that leather armor helps you with.
Right.
And so,
but at the same time, in that particular case, though, wearing the leather armor is still a detriment, because wearing the leather armor, they can't use their unarmored bonus.
Well, I would say that specifically for a barbarian, that's just their toughness, and their toughness doesn't go away because they're wearing leather.
But you got to keep in mind that with AC, right, it's the idea of movability, right? So leather armor is still restricted. That's why unarmored defense requires being unarmored, and that's why even leather armor would take away that. So it wouldn't be not necessarily whichever's higher. If you're wearing leather armor, you're not going to get your unarmored defense because you can't move like you normally would without it. Like that's how I would look at it. That's why that's why you can't wear 2 different types of armor and then just take, like the higher, because like you can't wear 2 types of armor at the same time. So that's where I'm thinking
there might be,
because I don't think you can get unarmored defense if we were wearing leather armor. I think that would defeat the purpose.
I think you might be right. I think you might be right.
So whichever is higher does take the priority. So it just doesn't stack. So it doesn't like cancel it. They don't stop. Okay. It's just that if you have a shield that's probably only giving you a +1 and you activate this, you're not getting a +3, right? Because this is giving you a +2 to your AC. Your shield basically is already giving you the +1. So this is almost giving you a potential cap. And if something's already filling it, it's just going to, have filled that potential already.
Right.
So I like that too. I do like that there isn't a cap. Even the shield is interesting. The fact that I have a shield and then I activate this, that's very interesting.
I think that's...
Or it's magical AC buffs. No,
that's
so it's
the shield spell. Yeah,
that's true. I misread that. It's the magical AC buffs.
So that's interesting though, because shield... I'm pretty sure shield would stack with mage armor and haste.
So if all
but
of those
I know
stacked,
that Shield of Faith doesn't stack with anything.
So if the creature you target has a normal shield, it stacks. Okay, that was my bad.
Right.
And then because it's not a magical shield, but if the shield is a +1, then that +1 is ignored. So again, any magical AC buffs. Shield is a +5 as a reaction to getting hit. Okay, interesting.
That is surprising to me. Okay.
Okay, interesting. Okay. I'm digging it more. I'm feeling the balance. I'm starting to. Okay. So we have the +2 to AC bonus doesn't stack with other magical AC. I like that. Next bonus you can get is a +1d6 to your attack rolls. Stacks with Bardic Inspiration. Okay, I don't hate that. For 200 GP to just at 200 GP cost, I could just
for a minute
my damage for.
But see, here's the thing: there are some first level spells that do that.
Yeah, for a minute.
For a minute, concentration, but for a minute.
Okay, yeah, for concentration.
So this is kind of concentration free.
That's fair, but you can't do other concentration. Well, I mean, it just says that. Okay, Cosmic, you said that any concentration spell already happening. If you're concentrating on a spell when using the ability, the concentration is broken upon gaining the buff. But does that mean that I can, once I have the buff, can then I redo a concentration spell? It doesn't stop me from having concentration spells out. It just stops the one I'm currently at.
I'd say that's fair.
So that means that I should be able to redo any concentration that I needed to do. Interesting. Okay. I don't hate the 1d6 on attack rolls. The other buff is a 1d6. Yes, while the aura is active, you can recast the concentration. Awesome. So you get another 1d6 to ability checks. Stacks with Bardic Inspiration.
So with Bardic Inspiration, you can just choose. You can choose whatever you want. With this, you have to have a specific one. This is not like a generic one.
It's just the idea that if you also do this buff, you can pull in a Bardic Inspiration you've been holding on to.
Yes,
and
like
then
specifically, and it'll work together with it. But like, I kind of like that because a lot of the times, you know, I specifically talk a lot about player agency, right? But this is almost a costly player agency because when it comes to getting a Bardic Inspiration, having that freedom, that one item, I can do whatever I want with it, right? But this, especially because it lasts for a minute and you get it on every single thing for that minute, I like that you have to have something specific for it. And it's not just like...
And I like that you can't get more than one. You know, you can't get like 2 ACs and an attack roll. It's like you're either throwing this all into your attack roll, you're doing all of this into an ability check, or you're doing it all into AC. There is no... I'm getting min-maxed out here. Yes. It's literally a
unless
buff
you got
to one thing.
2 people with these stabs, like you're not doubling up on anything.
And so and realistically too, again, it's super nice as a team effort as well because everybody could put money in and get a team bonus out. You know what I mean? Everybody can get that
donate
+2.
money and be like, hey, what buff do you want? Or no, well, you can't really
team,
split.
But everyone vote. Like, do we want AC for this fight? Do we need ability checks for this fight? Right?
Yeah.
Like, are we? I mean, can you imagine walking in and be like, hey guys, we're gonna be going and talking to this dude. Be like, everybody, throw in your money. Throw in your money. We're getting ability checks. No, you give us Bardic Inspiration. Everyone pay him. Everyone gets ability checks. We have now a D12 to our ability checks. Let's roll in here and let's talk our way. There's actually a lot going on here. It's like I like what's going on. I really like what's going on, and I do feel like it's a strain on lower players.
But again, like you said, I don't think it's for lower players.
And that's what I'm worried about. That's what I'm most worried about. 200 gold ain't fucking shit. Like, it really depends. I mean, I've had some stingy DMs out there, but on average, I'm really trying to understand, like, 200 gold, like, what is the average dungeon do you crawl, do you walk away with? You know what I mean? Like how often are you, like, I just feel like at 15th level with how rich you could be after, a dungeon or raiding a town, like, depending on what you're doing, I'm just thinking, like, if I literally have like $6,000 in gems, just like I just have a bandolier and they're all just like little tiny gems, and I'm just sitting here think, and I'm just like, oh, let's grab like 4 and like I'm really just thinking if I worked my ass off to just be insanely rich, or if somehow the party just got into a whole lot of money, you basically would be a walking unstoppable force because you could basically have everybody with a +4 AC with enough money. You know what I mean? Everybody could basically never fail an ability check with enough money. You could have people, one-shotting people with enough money. Like, I understand that there's a lot of player limitations, and I love what you did point that out. And I do think 200 is the good base. I just don't know if 200 increments is really where it's at late game. And the only fix right off the gate, and we're going to continue after this, but the only fix so far that's working in my head is like the increment, the amount is what doubles. So the first one's 200, the next one's 800, the first one's 2, then 4, then 8. And in that respect, you have a party of 20, they could absolutely dominate with a shit ton of money.
Yeah.
But they're not going to be all at plus 10 AC with $1 million gold. It would take $1 million gold to get them to like plus 5 AC each, right? Like I feel like the growth factor there for a much later game feels more in line with the power of this item, because early game this feels almost impossible to abuse. But right around like level 9, I feel like the treasures you'd be getting I mean, again, for the AC bonuses alone and the attack bonuses alone, for a minute in most combats, I'm feeling like I would sell most magical items I find to get that bonus, right? Like like you said, most scrolls, most gems.
So
I'm looking at it from that point of view, and that's how
instinctually, I feel like a real easy thing to do is just put a cap.
Oh,
you can't offer it more than X amount, right? Be like, hey,
well, there is the cap though. No, there is the cap. It's the proficiency bonus.
No. That's how many times you can do it. That's not how much you can offer it. Because imagine if I wanted to offer it $1 million gold all at once.
As a bonus extra skills.
Like maybe I have a gem that's worth $1 million gold, a single gem, and I'm like, boom, I want to put that on here.
Because I thought it said something about you can only do this as much as your proficiency bonus.
Yeah, it's right there. It's the second bullet point.
Oh. Buff can be done a number of times. So no matter how much money I give it though, right? A buff can only be selected upon the number of times of my proficiency. So even if you gave it $1 million gold, it can only add a maximum 6 buffs. So that is the cap. Do I have that right, Cosmic? So, let's see. Oh, wow. Mainly because depending on the bard's level, the bardic inspiration dice might be different for the same ability checks. Yeah, no, bardic inspiration was brilliant. Sounds like the jeweler background, having a lot of gems always on hand. So that's why the higher rarity versions do the... Okay, so we haven't gotten into the higher rarity effects yet. So those will have some differences later game.
Okay.
The effects currently on screen is the rare version, which is bronze color. There's a very rare and a legendary. Okay, so these come in multiple versions. That's going to be interesting. So those increase the base offering amounts. Okay, so if we're going to have, multiple versions, you can increase the base offering amounts. That's really interesting. So I'm curious to get into those as well. Okay. So Cosmic, do we have that right? So no matter how much money I give this, I can only technically activate a number of buffs equal to my proficiency modifier per long rest. So if I gave it $1 million, it would keep the aura running. I'd use I'd use my 5 proficiency bonus slots to burn 5, boosts. But then I'd take a long rest. The staff should still have 999,900 gold left because I only used. So, I only use...
Does that just mean that every minute that goes by, it's just eating up another 200 gold?
So activated buff is limited to the proficiency bonus. So yeah, you can only activate it. These buffs right here, you can only have a number of these active equal to your proficiency bonus. So per long rest. So if your proficiency bonus is 5, you can no matter how much aura, no matter how much I've fed it, I can only activate up to 5 buffs. Up to 5 counters of buffs if my proficiency bonus is 5.
So if we're gonna use the let's use the attack roll one because I feel like that's easy.
Yeah, okay. 1d6 to your attack roll with stacks of bardic inspiration.
That I am going to feed this thing 10,000 gold, right? 10,000 gold divided by 200 is what?
Well, let's just say 1,000.
Okay, 1,000.
So you give it 1,000 gold. That would be 5 bardic. That would be 5 boosts. But let's say if your proficiency bonus was only 3, you'd only get to use 3 of those, and you'd still have 2 waiting for you. But you'd use up for that long rest. You'd use up the 3 you could.
So Cosmic, I do want to make sure I'm understanding this right. Is what he's saying accurate? basically, if I were to feed this 5 uses worth of gold, and I only had a proficiency bonus of 3 for whatever reason, I would only get a maximum of 3d6 added to my attack roll.
When using the attack roll buff.
When using the attack roll buff.
Not 5 uses.
Not 5 uses.
Yes, he says yes.
Okay.
So that is where the balance comes in, is no matter how much I feed it. Now granted, Cosmic, if he feeds it 5 uses but can only use it 3, when he wakes up from his next long rest, gets his 3 uses back. Mm-hmm. The staff still has 2 uses, correct? The staff would keep the aura. That doesn't ever go away. Is that correct? Because that's key too. If I can just feed this in the background, I would just do that. I would just always, anytime I had a spare 200, I would just throw it in there.
That's where I would give it a cap. I would be like, you can
only store so much.
Yeah, exactly.
Because that's what I'm really curious about is, does the aura stocked in it ever depreciate?
If you overfeed it.
If you come across a 1000 GP gem, why wouldn't you just throw it in there? That I don't know. The 400 GP left over may be refunded. Oh.
It'll just show up on the other side of the scale.
As like a weaker version of what you threw in it. So lesser gold or maybe a lesser gem. That could be interesting.
Interesting.
You found a loophole I missed. Well, and that's the thing too. Maybe it could be, like I said, maybe it's smart. So the wielder has the cap, right? So if your proficiency bonus is 5, right? So you have 5 uses, and you try to throw in enough money for 6, it's only going to accept 5 uses of money. Maybe just that's it, right? If the intent is not to give this thing a charge and let it be a wand fully charged and ready to go, if the intent is you have to spend it at time of activation, then just say you can't put in more than you're using in that moment.
Okay.
Because it does seem that it's, you bonus action to fill it, and then you main action to use it, so it doesn't really say that it goes away during a time frame. But you could even just put in one thing where if you could put in a single thing that says any aura or any amount put in the staff that's been unused after 1 hour is refunded. So you could just say that you have up to an hour to use it, so maybe you can even pre-prep it for a fight, right? But you can't keep it there indefinitely. I could say what is going on. So I think that would be fine.
Okay.
I think just having something that says that it will reset or it will recycle or it will give you back your thing after a time limit, that solves that. So we already know that it has a max number of uses, and it can't be overbought, and you cannot target 2 creatures with 2 different buffs. Okay, that's cool. I do like that. I can't remember. Did we ask this? Cosmic, with this, if I say round 1, I activate AC bonus on myself. But I have a +2 to my AC. Round 2, can I activate attack roll and have a +2 to my AC and a 1d6 to my attack roll, or does it replace?
That is a good question.
Because you said that, because I think you said that they don't stack. Like, you can't stack multiple abilities, right? So you can't target 2 creatures with 2 different things. I don't think you can, because I know that each action you can only throw it on a creature per action. But if I use this in 2 different rounds as 2 different actions, do I get to then use different bonuses?
Or do you have to augment the bonus that's already out?
Right. Yeah. Do they stack or do they replace? That would be a big question because if I'm hoarding a couple gems, I could be like, here's 400, give me a +4 to my AC, and then here's 200,
that's another
give me a
interesting
+D6.
question that I would have about timing. Because it says each one of these lasts for a minute. If I'm activating them at different times, then they're going to have different activation periods.
Which is why, and that's where I'm just really curious of if it's a replacement versus a stack. Yes, you can have multiple buffs active at the cost of those extra actions, but they should be in different... okay, so they're intended to be on different targets, right? It's not intended for you to stack all of them on yourself. The intent is, yes, you can throw out different buffs on different turns.
Okay.
When you use your action to do it, you can only activate 1 buff a number of activations, but different rounds you can do different things. It's not intended to do it on yourself because that's a lot of wasted actions. But again, let's say you're running through a puzzle and you're going to take damage. You know what I mean? Like maybe buff your AC to like, get through an area, or right before the fight, like instantly do it like on a surprise round. Throw it up a little bit so you can, get a couple free actions out. So potential there, but I don't think it's as big of a loophole to make it OP. So so far I like it. The last bonus actions you get from this one, you can get a 1d6 to your saving throws, which also stacks Bardic Inspiration, but does not include death saving throws, which I 100% agree with.
Okay.
And then you can also get a plus 10 to your speed. It does stack with other movement buffs such as haste or dashing. This includes walk, fly, climb, or swim. So anything that you can do, this adds plus 10 to that speed.
What about... I'm curious if this was an unintentional omission, but burrow speed.
That sounds like it's more of less of a oversight.
Okay.
It sounds like he was just covering... In my opinion, it sounds like he's just covering... It's all speed. It's not walking speed.
He's trying to cover his bases.
But he, lore-wise, I still see you could argue that because boring's a thing. But I would say burrow can be done, but it is something that's never used. That's true. But yeah. So basically, plus 10 to any of your active movement speed, and then you cannot target two creatures with different buffs. Interesting. Okay, cool. So that one... Okay, so here we go. So that was the spell focus, but it does come in different rarities. So there are 3 versions of this item. There's the bronze, which is rare. We have silver, which is very rare, and gold, which is legendary. The above describes the rare version of this item. So we just looked at the bronze version. The maximum required value for the offerings are 2.5 times for each increase in rarity shown below. The very rare version doubles the rarities effects of the legendary version, and the legendary version triples the rarities effects. Okay, so for a very rare, it's 500 per boost.
Just I created this table, and that last column is just meant to show you. I struggled.
The AC bonus.
Yes, it's just an example
of
like
AC okay.
Bonus.
So if we were casting for the AC bonus, we're using the bronze rare item, you would get a +2 for every charge at 200 GP. Using the silver very rare for 500, you'd get a +4 to your AC for every charge. And legendary gold, it would cost 200 or 1250, and you'd get D6 for every charge. So
+6
or +6 to your AC for every charge. So yeah.
So question.
That's interesting. If you were to give Kage a +2 AC and yourself an attack buff, they can be done on separate turns, not the same turn. Yes, correct.
Okay. So looking at the rare and the very rare versions, just basic. If I wanted to give myself a +4 to my AC, I could do it with 400 GP and a rare staff.
Ooh, good point. That's a good point. Because same thing too. You could get 8 AC out of 1,000 GP. You see that?
Yeah.
If I had the silver, I'd pay 1,000 GP and get 8. And you can get 6 for 600. So I can get this base AC
I would also get
for
8.
half that price.
I would get...
That's an over.
I would get 8 for 800.
2 4s.
Right?
Yeah. No, that's...
He says that's the intent. The higher the rarity, the more costly. But they're also harder to get.
But that's the problem. Why would I go after them? I don't care if they're harder to get. You could tell me all day long, go for this gold one, but I'm like, but the minimum price to get 6 AC is more expensive than my bronze one.
There is.
Maybe we have it wrong. Is it that the bronze is harder to find?
Updated one. I apologize.
As a DM, I wouldn't have more than one of this item in the game at a time. Oh yeah, for sure. I'm just curious. Do you mean like the bronze is harder to find? Because again, if I had a bronze, or are you just saying that there's 3 versions not meant to exist at the same time, but 3 versions to offer DMs to use?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So it's if you want to be easier, you say you use this bronze version. If you want to be really hard on your players, use the gold version.
I see what you're saying.
So it's not meant to say, hey, here's a bronze one. There is a legendary one you can go find.
Right.
It's a, hey, DMs, do you want to be nice to your players? Give them this bronze level. If you want to be hard on your players, give them the legendary.
So, I apologize. Cosmic gave me an update for this item, and I updated it in the Discord, but I did not.
I didn't get the update link.
I did not update it in there. So let me print that real quick and get it to you. Just because there's a little bit more information specifically for the legendary one.
Gotcha.
He added and this is, he asked me about this the other stream, and I wanted to review it here on stream. So I'm very curious what it actually is. So give me 1 second, and I'll get this set up for you.
No worries. All right. So far, it's really interesting. I'm liking where this is going. It's I'm liking this as a magical item. I will be honest. As we've read through this, I've completely lost that this was a spell focus.
Oh, it just feels like a really cool magical item.
It's an amazing magical item, but it really just doesn't come together in my mind as a spell focus. Like it's in terms of, I don't know why we're calling it a spell focus when it could just be a magical item. You know what I mean? Like I guess the idea is because you're carrying it around. You know, again, we talked about it being a weapon, so it's more than just, you know, something you're carrying around, and it because it would be kind of hard to justifiably have this in a backpack or something. Like, I guess lore wise it makes sense to use it as something else, but it's just one of those, like, it doesn't seem to really call back to the fact that it's like a spell focus. It's just something else it could be. And
yeah,
I think that just means that it could be just a weapon that also is a magical weapon, right? You could just make this a +1 flail that has scales on it.
It kind of. I mean, would you say the grimoire that I referred to before, like that to me is kind of like you were talking about, it's just like a +1, just a little added something to.
Yeah, it was overall something that's like, okay, it is a spell focus, it does that job, but it kind of overall encompassed like what you would expect you would want from that. So it's like, again, it's not that it makes this any worse. It's just one of those things where, as I've read along, I kind of completely forgot that it was a spell focus, and I don't know if that helps or hinders it. It's just more of it's a really cool idea and a really cool item. I'm just wondering if it's best to be a spell focus, or if this would be just a magical item you'd want to have on hand. You know what I mean? Like something that you could strive for. But I guess, again, adding the fact that it is a spell focus is also just better for a spellcaster to hold on to it. You know,
it's
so
just, it gives it that multi-purpose, so you don't have to like,
because it is
have
attunement,
this
right?
staff and another spell focus as well.
And that's the thing, is like, it isn't, you know, because it is attunable and requires attunement by a spellcaster, you want to give them that buff. So I guess it's more of like I feel like instead of this being like hey, here's a new type of focus, like here's a new type of foci that you can use, I'm getting more of the vibes of, hey, here's a cool magic item. Because it's going to be so cumbersome, we're going to allow it to replace your focus. You know what I mean? It's almost like it being a focus is a benefit because you want to get this thing and you don't want to be over encumbered with stuff. But I don't know if it, like, in my opinion, represents what a spell focus is. And that's not really like that's not a good or a bad thing. I'm just like, I think that's where
I
approached it more of it's not so much of a replacement for a focus. It's definitely worth it for a spellcaster because it does replace whatever your focus is, though. So it's definitely one of those like beneficial things. And maybe that's just it. You know, you say that it's like it can be tuned by a spellcaster, but you know, I'm just curious. Yeah, we've talked about maybe turning it into a weapon. Maybe there's like, you know, has to be attuned by a spellcaster, but can also be used as a weapon if they have like a martial class, like if they're a dual class in a martial feat, you know, like a fighter or something.
Oh, right.
So it's like otherwise it is just a focus for any other spellcaster, but if you're like a wizard monk, you can use it as the flail. If you're like a paladin, if you're a fighter monk, or I mean, if you're a fighter, you know, a sorcerer, you can use it as like a weapon. Like something additive like that, again, to kind of help encompass it would be kind of interesting. But overall, I think it does exactly what it needs to do.
So I was able to add a link. If you look in the notes section, there should be something that says legendary.
Got it.
And if you just scroll, everything else should be the same. But if you scroll down to the bottom,
here we go.
A little added snippet.
So additionally, the legendary version has this extra effect. When casting a spell base of 6th level or higher, including upcasting, using this item as the spell focus, you regain all expended spell slots of 4th level and lower. This can be done once every 10 days.
Well, there's your callback to being the spellcasting focus.
And that's kind of what I was hoping for. This is kind of a little bit more along the lines of what I was hoping for. So that's interesting. So casting any 6th level or higher spell, or essentially burning a 6th level spell slot, regains your 4 and under spell slots, but just once. That could actually be pretty clutch in a late game battle, holding on to that 6th level spell just to get it out and then get some other spells back. That's actually pretty clutch. And that actually really makes the player pay attention to their spell slot usage.
So my question is, can you read it once more for me?
So when casting a spell when casting a 6th level or higher spell, which includes upcasting, while using this as your spell focus.
Or excludes?
Excluding upcasting. I read that as including.
Okay.
Excluding upcasting. So the spell itself has to start at 6th level or higher.
Has to be a base of... Okay, I got you.
Base 6th level or higher. And when you're using this as a spell focus, you regained all expended spell slots of 4th level and lower.
So, do you not get to choose when this triggers? Especially if it's going to go on a 10-day cooldown? Does this just happen anytime I cast a 6th level or higher spell?
I would prefer that it's not choosable, but I think most DMs would rule that it's a choosable effect.
I would feel like, because if you just needed to cast a 6th level spell, and that's the first spell you cast that day, sucks to suck for the next 10 days.
But then technically you could just say I have a backup focus. Remember, it's only when using this as your focus. If you just have a wand and just pull out your wand with your other hand.
That's actually very fair.
There's no real reason why. Again,
fair.
Because again, if you look at it from the point of view of this isn't meant to really be a replacement for the traditional focus. It's the idea that you found this magical item, and as a spellcaster, instead of being inhibited, it allows you to cast spells through it. But if this is one of those side effects, like truly a side effect that you can't control, it still behooves you to keep your previous spell focus. Because you'll still maybe one day, if you have the high enough version, you still may want that. So that's one option. Since paladins and warlocks cannot cast spells of 6th level or above, they still make use of the feature if they offer a spell scroll containing a 6th level spell or above in place of the spell slot. As to not screw them out of the specific effect. This alternative way of using the effect is specific only to warlocks and paladins out of fairness. I like that. I like that other people can't do that same sacrifice, because then again it would take away from the fact that the others can do more. So it's that option of you can use spell scrolls. Anyone can use spell scrolls for their value to feed the scales, but only warlocks and paladins can use the spell level to their advantage of the spell. Of the scroll.
I don't think that's what they're submitting. They have to cast it using a spell scroll, because if you what do you call it? Warlocks and paladins, they're half casters. So the highest spell slot that they ever have access to is 5th level. Right,
but I'm just going off of they can still make use of this feature if they have a spell scroll of 6th level or higher or above in place of the spell. But he says, I think the thing I got stuck on as because it says if they offer a spell scroll. So I'm thinking offer as in use it to pay the aura. Because you remember he said previously you can use like spell scrolls to like a $200 spell scroll can feed it. So I'm thinking if you have a spell scroll of 6th level or higher that is of like 1500 GP.
So far, this version of the ability has nothing to do with offering it anything. So
I know. I know. That's why I was just letting you know where I got that from. Okay. It's just because the words he used was saying that. I mean, he still has to let us know what he meant by that.
Right.
I'm just saying that when he says offer, I just thought that
was
so it isn't choosable. It'd be way too so it isn't choosable. So anytime you cast your 6th level spell, you're going to get the refresh or not. And you've burned it for 10 days.
Okay.
I kind of like that because it reminds me of like what is it, the Rod of Wonder? The Wonders are...
yeah, I think it is the Rod of Wonders.
Yeah, it just reminds me of something like that,
Yeah.
where it's kind of like that whole, it's just going to trigger, and you're using it, man. If you don't know how your spells work... Because again, realistically speaking, you know, if you're going to cast a 6th level spell, unless you're using this thing's ability, why would you even use it as a spell focus? If you know that that's its trigger, just make sure you have your original spell focus. So Cosmic, I'm curious, when you say that the Paladins and Warlocks can use this feature with a 6th level spell in place of that, are you saying that they can give it a 6th level spell as payment and as a spell slot, or are you saying that they can cast a spell from the spell scroll and then activate this ability? Which one is that? Because I think that's what we're trying to figure out.
Yeah, that's what I thought it was.
Do I have to cast the scroll? Do I have to use the scroll and then this ability activates?
The next bullet point is actually what he described, and that's what I got from when he originally submitted it.
As payment to fuel the aura.
To fuel the aura?
Yes. So literally, if you, to do one of these actions, if you feed it a spell scroll of 6th level, not only will you give it money for one of these actions, but you'll also feed it a spell slot for this ability.
And it'll just give you your all your spell slots back.
Yeah, and so if you give it a 6th level spell scroll, it will feed you your 4th level and under spell slots. And you'll get your buff.
See, that for me breaks my immersion, because it feels like it breaks how.
But you think about it though, he is limiting it to, because it kind of makes sense in the sense that it's Warlocks and Paladins. So you could say that it's the exchange to their deity, like you know, or their pact, but because it's a fuel thing, right? They're not using the magic; the magic's coming from something else. So you could say that it's an exchange of magical potentials. I get where you're coming from of just giving it and then giving
I'm
the
just
fuel
talking
back.
about. I'm more talking about from a mechanics perspective.
It's supposed to be used as a foci.
It feels very inconsistent with what's happening here, especially because when using spell scrolls, it's one of the few times that those types of casters can cast higher level spells. So it feels like what would make most sense is when they cast that higher level spell, just like the use was intended for. That way, the entire
instead of it being another
the
sacrifice, right?
Changing.
I mean, unless it's intended to be another sacrifice. Like, you already can't cast spells that high, so either you finally get your chance, or you continue being what you aren't. You know, don't act like what you aren't and sacrifice it.
But even with that, it's just the consistency of how it operates.
Yeah, I get what you're saying.
It just feels off. So, you know, I definitely get what he's trying to do, and I think I like the intent behind it. Mm-hmm. Like, I definitely want to give them an opportunity to use it as well. It feels like, you know.
I definitely see what you're saying in terms of like, what is a, you know, you don't want those other ones that can cast those higher level spells to only be the benefits of it, right? Because then why would you ever pick it up, right? Like, you wouldn't really get that ultimate benefit. But I guess the other option would be too is, because the idea is getting spell slots back after casting such a high level spell, which in and of itself is also really interesting. Like, your higher level spell is feeding your lower level regen, which is very, very interesting. So I'm trying to think, how would that work? How would that work for someone who can't cast high level spells? Like, what would you want to do instead? If you can't, you know, if they can't cast the higher level spells to get a bunch of their lower level spells back.
I mean, it's weird for me because Warlocks, they already get their stuff back on a short rest. Like, every other spellcaster doesn't get anything back except for Wizards, and that's only a very small amount of their spells back. But I mean, granted, Warlocks only have like 2 or 3 spell slots, so it's not like.
So what would you say to this then?
Crazy benefit.
If you wanted to keep it consistent, but we also wanted to balance it the same way, right? Because those guys can't cast those higher level spells, so they're kind of locked away from getting spells refreshed, right? That's kind of the downside, right? That's what we want to get away from, but we want to make it consistent. Aside from having to cast a 6th level spell scroll, because again, that's still just kicking them when they're down, being like, hey, you already can't cast that kind of magic. Now go, good luck finding one just to get some low level spells back, right? But what if you could do a thing where, because everybody else, it specifically says that, because, you know, nobody can, because nobody else can use it for upcasting, right? Or like upcasting doesn't give them the bonus. Like other people can't upcast to 6th level to regen.
Yes.
Which I totally get. So what if you gave the paladins and warlocks the opposite, where they get a, like when they're on their last spell, they get a free upcast. So whereas the normal wizards, whenever they cast a level 6 spell through their focus, they get all their lower levels back. Mm-hmm. What if warlocks and paladins, when they're on their last spell, regardless of it, it gets upcast 2 levels? That's just automatic, no matter. So even if you're literally casting a level 1 spell and it's nothing, and it doesn't really have a level 3 version, oh well. It's something that happens, but if it's your last spell, like you said, you kind of burn through them, you get them back super quick, which means you're going to be burning through them, but the last one you get to cast goes up 2 levels automatically, and that's it.
I feel like...
Would that be a similar benefit to those 2 classes?
The only problem with that is that some people won't feel the effects of that, because there are just some spells that you can't upcast. Like...
No, but that's the point, though, is like, again, it's the player agency, where just like the other ones, you may cast a 6th level spell and not need the regen. Your last spell that you chose to cast may not have anything, but if you're smart and you know, I'm going to wait for this to be my last spell of the day, you're basically getting a free a free +2 cast. And again, their highest level is 5, right?
Highest level is 5, yeah.
That gives them a opportunity to every day cast a level 7 spell. Like, it gives them that one opportunity that they'll never have only through this weapon.
And only if they drain themselves completely.
It's the exact opposite. The other one's getting to fuel themselves off of a higher level spell. These guys are saying, fuck it, I'm depleted. This thing is going to fuel my spell. It's literally the other side of the coin. What do you think about that, Cosmic? Instead of the paladins and warlocks having to burn a spell scroll, what if their last spell is always upcast by 2? Just like any 6th level spell always gives 4th level spells and belower. I don't think it was better. I don't think you had shitty wording. I just think that it just depends on how you wanted to use the scrolls, whether you needed to cast them or give them.
Yeah.
I really just think that, again, it depends on what you wanted. Like Kage said, it definitely went away from the consistency and of the intent of it being a focus. But I think it was the right idea in terms of still granting them that opportunity. It's just, it's still an uphill battle, right? It's still an uphill battle for them to get those scrolls and to use them or to sacrifice them, because either way kind of sucks. You either have to get them and then be able to use them to get the benefit, which is even harder than a wizard who can just cast it, or you have to finally get a spell that you can't normally cast and then give up the chance to cast it in order to get your spells back. It does kind of feel like a kick in the butt either way. But yeah, I don't know. I if you like that, chew on that and see what you think. I kind of like the idea. You did point out a really good aspect here, that paladins and warlocks don't benefit as much, and I think that they should, but getting a free upcast, that's not something that any wizard would be able to get, right? A free upcast to any level 5 spell that they have. It's not amazing. It's not great, later game, but still, it's a free +2. I mean, it's still bumping any of your spells. It's kind of nice.
Yeah.
And it actually leads into another suggestion that I had, because all of these are for the legendary version, which I really like. But what I'm starting to think here now is, why don't we have these effects, like we were talking about, this is kind of what makes it a spell focus. Why don't we have these effects varying at each level? So, why not, like, if it's a rare, anytime you cast a a 4th level spell, you regain all of like your 1st level spells, and then any 5th level spell regains 2nd and under, and then the 6th level spell 3rd and under. So it kind of, there's always that effect there. And then same thing, it would be that, the rare would upcast your spell by 1. If it's your last spell, the next one would give you an upcast of 2, and then the last one would give you an upcast of 3, right? Mm. So they both progress in that same way, where either version you have is going to give you those effects, but you definitely want the better version.
Right.
Because it's going to give you the maximum of those effects. And that's just a personal thing of mine when I look at anything that has versions of it, whether it's for DM choice to throw in their realm or in realm choices, it's that consistency. It's like, if I have the choice to have these items, like personally, as a DM, if I'm reading through the booklet and I'm looking at this, it's like, here's 3 items, but one of them obviously stands out with more, I'm just going to go with that one. I wouldn't even bother. It's like, it's going to probably be more expensive. And if I felt it was too expensive, I'd make it cheaper, like as a DM decision, right? For me, I get like, you want maybe if I had 2, like a slight, like a base item and then a slightly more magical version of it, that's cool.
But if there's only one in the world, why not have these abilities with it?
Exactly. But when you have 3 options, I feel like the other 2 are just shadowed immediately by the fact that this one just does more out the gate.
Honestly, like initially I was thinking that there would be, because there's multiple versions of these, I'm thinking there's a possibility that there's going to be multiple of these in the world.
That's what I thought too. Is like you would learn that like you can
might
get the
come
next
up
one
against another user of one of these. Like you have yours and you think you're badass and all this other stuff, and then you come up with somebody who's got a legendary version and they can do all this extra stuff, and you thought they were out of spell slots, but
and then you finally get that one,
you know, and then you beat them somehow, and exactly. And so now that would be, that would entice me to have one that's special or that's unique or that can do more than the rest of them. But I do see what you're saying. If it's just going to be the one, then at the very least, because I do like those features. I really like the fact that it attaches.
I think they're phenomenal features. I just think that they're almost wasted only being available with the legendary. At that point, it's like
then I better use the legendary.
Yeah, and then I might just make it cheaper if it doesn't fit for what they're trying to do. So, but I do like this though. I do like how the price differences make it to where it's how more difficult or really how useful do you want this to be to your players?
Yeah. And, I'm not going to lie. If I'm going to put this in my world and there's only supposed to be one, I'm going to give it to an NPC and make him kill him for it.
Oh, 100%.
Something like that.
100%.
So
stuff like this is best for that because you get to show it off. You get to see what it does. It's not just legend. It's not just something that they just got. It's something that they truly earned, right? I absolutely love that. It's all good. All that is good, but legendary has to stand out in some way other than just how much more powerful it is.
And I do get that, but again, I think that only has value if there's multiple in the world. Like
that's fair too.
What's the point in legendary standing out if there's nothing but
to compare
legendary?
It to, right?
If there's nothing to compare it to, exactly.
That's fair
because
too.
That's exactly what I mean. I'm here for that, but that's why I would want more. More, give me more. Whatever, it's fine. I actually think it would be a really cool idea if there was like a master apprentice type situation, and almost like the Sith, and like the master had like the legendary version, and he taught his apprentice how to like make like a weaker version or something like that.
Here's an idea. So all these buffs that we've been talking about, right? We have. Because I really do think that like these should be spread across them, but Cosmic wants that legendary to stand out somehow. So what if one of the buffs, like what if one of the extra bonuses on the legendary only version, because you have one that allows you to recoup spells, another one that potentially would allow you to upcast higher. But what if the legendary version still does all of that and they all kind of progress this way, but the legendary stands out by allowing you to stock it with enough energy, like you can basically pay it enough to grant you additional spell slots. Like instead of, like essentially you can give it enough to where it's like for every, so it's like, your legendary, it's like...
So instead of refunding you can overfeed it and stock up like...
a free spell slot, basically of a certain... So it's like if I feed it 3 gems... or 3 times the amount I can use, or it's like, if I go over a full charge, it's basically holding a spell slot for say 24 hours until my next long rest. So that way, even if I burn it, even if I don't get my spell reset, the staff is basically holding a leveled spell slot for me that I can just sit there, and maybe it's equal. Maybe the spell slot is equal to how many excess charges I've paid it. So if my proficiency bonus is 5, I can only technically put 5 charges in the other 2 staves. But the legendary, I can put say 8 charges in. I can burn my 5. Now it's holding on to a level 3 spell slot.
Interesting.
So every charge I add, or every payment I make after it, so the most I can make is 9 payments beyond my proficiency bonus. So that would have to be at the max proficiency is 6.
Is it?
I thought we found that out. It's like 5 or 6. But you know what I mean? Like if my proficiency bonus is 5, that means that the max I could pay is 14. But that would give me 1 level 9 spell slot to deal with, right? Not a level 9 spell. I would still have to know the spell. It would still have to be a spell I can cast. But it's basically going to refuel a spell slot of that level 5.
Well,
that would make the legendary fully stand out.
Could you theoretically, so if I don't know any 9th level spells, but I somehow get a 9th level spell slot and I have upcastable spells, could I just use it to upcast a 3rd level spell, for instance?
Up to 9th. Why not? Like, again, I feel like that's the idea. It's any spell that you have, but you have a 9th level spell slot to use it.
Yeah,
with.
6 is a max.
And maybe it's like that, right? It's basically the staff saying, hey, you have a free spell slot, cast any spell you know, and when you cast it through me, I'm going to cast it at 9th level. That's the legendary's action. You know, it's you've paid me to hold this spell slot. The next spell I cast is going to be at that spell, like, because it's, you've burned all of your actions and everything, and I have that. So, I wonder how. Let's see what Cosmic thinks about that, because I think that would be kind of cool. I really think the idea of that legendary item being able to be pumped with enough gold that it basically is holding on to a free option just at any point, just to throw that out there. I think that would be kind of dope.
Interesting.
PB is limited to +6 from level up, but +7 from special items like the Ion Stone of Master. So even then, yeah, again, max 7 of all of the bonuses you could get, but then you'd still have to pay beyond that to get that extra spell slot, right? So that's 8 payments just to get a single spell slot.
It's crazy.
But if you're a 20th level with this legendary item, I'd let him have it. Like, if you got that kind of money to blow,
hey,
fucking go for it. But can you imagine being able to cast any spell? Like, if you had enough money, that means that you get to cast any spell at 9th level. Like, if you had enough money to go 9 payments beyond your proficiency bonus in order to cast an upcasted spell, that would be fucking dope. But
that would be nutso.
That would be kind of crazy. I think that might be a good option, but I do understand making the legendary stand out, especially if it's not the only one in existence. 100% makes sense, especially if that's like the BBEG.
Yeah.
Or along the way, you're going to find someone, like you said, like a powerful NPC that you can take it from. You want it to stand out. You want it to be more than just more powerful, because sometimes it is kind of shitty to just get an item and it just does slightly more damage, or, it just, it's slightly, lighter. It is kind of nice to get a new feature, but I do feel like, again, these features down here, the reason why I would stick to keeping them is mainly because they're the highlight of coming full circle as this being a spell focus.
Right.
Because otherwise, again, it's just more of it's a cool magical item that doesn't over encumber spellcasters because it can be used as a focus. These items bring it full circle and be like, no, this was always meant to be a spell focus.
Right.
And that's
very much so.
That's how I feel, especially like player wise. When I look at this, I'm just being like, yeah, that's what I want to see. I want to see this come back to being why we're doing a spell focus here. Interesting. That's fantastic though. Interesting. I like the idea of stacking with Bardic Inspiration too.
No, I do like that. And I'm not gonna lie, like, even though it's a little interesting how it's done, I do like that the AC doesn't stack with everything. Right, you know what I mean?
Right, all the magical
how
armor.
Some things can stack and other things can. It's not letting you get like a freaking 30 AC by stacking on stacking. But
no, and it's like, again, it's all about the sacrifice of money, and because there's no sacrifice of time here. You know what I mean? It's actions that you got to do. But if you have the gems, if you have the payment, what you can do with this is great. There's really not a lot of ways that you can truly blow this out of proportion to make it OP. I mean, it's really it's cost effective that way. It pun intended, right? In terms of player agency, but also action economy. Like we said, using bonus actions to defeat it, but using full actions to use them, and then them only lasting a minute. That's just on the buff side. And then again, being able to have any kind of buff to the spells that you do, I think is a really good idea. In terms of the abilities, it is interesting how I don't know how I feel about it being so well-rounded, in the sense that it target AC, attack rolls, ability checks, saving throws, or speed. It really is all-encompassing, and I'm still trying to figure out if that's a good thing. You know what I mean? But it is scales. It is a balancing maneuver, right? So it is kind of meant to be all-encompassing, right?
Yeah. That is lightweight the vibe.
If you found a way to get insanely high AC, the DM would just start using more AoE save throw based things rather than using roll to hit. That's true too, but at the same time, it's only going to last a minute. The DM's not worried. You just got to evade for a minute. High AC isn't a problem because...
Especially late game,
I just got to change targets. This guy may wail on me for a bit, but all I got to do is keep my distance. High AC, I'd be more worried about the attack roll, but then again, you're only going to get it for a minute and you got to hit me.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Yeah, no, it's pretty good. It's pretty solid. I like it. All right, so we got to do the fun part. All right, so does this cover any holes in High Point right now? No, there's no gaps. No gaps or anything that it's going to be filling. Nothing that I'm really missing from this. It definitely goes along more with that conversation that we were having about the fixing foci. This definitely starts to bleed into that area where we were talking about when foci are crafted and making them and what they can do. This is definitely in that range, but I still feel like this leans more into the magical item that's designed not to be cumbersome instead of built as a foci from the ground up, if that makes sense. Great magical item. Glad that it has that foci, that being able to be used as a spell focus effect. But I don't know if it really truly stands out to me as this is a spell focus. Again, I always go back. I talked about every time I bring this up. I always think about this. It's the first thing that comes to my mind. It's I imagine the BBEG, the dark wizard. The one who's dipped into dark magic, who's done it for centuries, or even the Lich, who's lived for millennia. I'm just imagining their spell focus. And it's I'm imagining these decrepit wands made out of bones of their enemies, right? Or a wand of fractured and burnt wood that almost was destroyed in their first battle that made them so evil. I'm imagining these as icons of and symbols of who they are, right? We have not Venla. Wow, Vecna. Vecna is their spell focus is probably the book. They, because they basically always have their book or it's their dagger, right? But I don't actually know what Vecna's official spell focus would be. But that's it. You know what I mean? But I feel like you would expect these guys when they're legendary, right? When they're that great, I always imagine that spell focus is meaningful. And that's why, we talked about this in the Fixing Foci episode. Yeah. It just feels like when you can take someone's foci away and it literally does nothing other than just makes them go get a new one, it feels again, it's just oh, I dropped my pistol, I'll just grab a new one. It doesn't feel like that's personalized or meaningful. And I really want to, I see that. I would like to see that in foci. And that's where it's this is great because a spell caster wouldn't want to just carry this around, right? Without being able to cast their spells, this is useless to them. So realistically, it makes sense to be a focus, but trying to imagine that this started as one, that it wasn't a helpful feature, but the fact that it started as a spell focus,
and that's
where I'm hard.
Yeah.
That's where I'm hard set to be and that's where I think of in terms of it's a cool magical item, but it's not quite the filling the focus gap that I was hoping for in High Point in terms of trying to come up with more unique and creative ideas. But it is a really, really awesome item nonetheless. Now, does it give me any inspirations? It's as fascinating as it is. I I don't know. I don't really know if this is the route that I would go in High Point in terms of granting extra magical power. Now, there are things you can do to exchange different values, but with High Point, like the idea of an exchange like this, the exchange would be much different. I wouldn't use monetary value in terms of like the magical items for sure could be exchanged, but it would be more of the magical potential. The value would indicate magical potential, but the value itself wouldn't be directly related. And that's where I think the division starts for me in terms of my mechanics.
So,
I wouldn't necessarily buy magical power.
Refresh my memory, because I know this was an older editions thing. In High Point, can gold be turned into experience?
I don't like that rule. I've never liked that rule in D&D where XP equals XP and GP do it for a couple of different reasons. One, it's just very cumbersome during XP giving. Like when you do a battle and everything and everyone's getting XP and then you get a bunch of gold and then you have to add that amount of gold to your XP. And then if you have extra rogue bonuses, then you got to get an extra 10% for every piece that you... It's a bunch of extra shit when I can just be like, here's your XP and here's your gold. That's your numbers. You don't have to continue doing math. If I say you get 500 XP for this and you get 100 XP and you get 100 group XP, but you get 100 gold, your XP was already calculated. I don't need to overthink that. And that's also more math for me. If I'm thinking about how much XP you earned, but then I have to recap, because that XP is going to tell me where you are leveling up. But if I give you gold, I have to... It's
what about
too much.
lore-wise? As far as... Because I don't know how in other versions how they explained gold equating to experience.
They never really did lore-wise. It was mainly a mechanic based off of adventure. The idea was you adventured, you earned, and that was like your notoriety. I mean, you could say in lore it's notoriety. The more rich you get, the more famous you are. You bring more gold back to town. People know your name. It could just be that you spend more. You pass peasants, you give them coins. Like role play wise, you spend more, you tip more. There are reasons behind why more gold could equal more fame, because we all know that leveling is experience, but it's also fame related. Like level 10, you're named. There's a lot of different reasons why you could say why more gold, but I don't like the direct relation, because it's more math for me, it's more math for my players, and I like to keep those two things separate. So I've never used the gold equals XP, but gold and XP on certain levels aren't interchangeable, but can be used in the same way. Like for gods, for instance. Gods can accept tithings like gold and XP. You can give them those things, and those things matter because they're types of energy. They're types of value in a world where ideological value is all that matters to them.
So that's where my question comes in. If gold and XP can be used as energy...
Or they have an exchange. They have an exchange rate.
Exactly.
Yes.
That's... for me, the theory of an item like this.
And yes, and in High Point, if an item like this existed, it would be from a specific for this to matter, like in terms of like when I say like the disconnect is the value is the gold, for this to really exist in High Point in that particular way, it would have to have been created by a very specific god for like a specific purpose. It would be like, hey, I'm creating this god, I'm creating this, boom, here it's in the world, and I want money. Like the whole purpose is I'm needing this, so I'm giving mortals...
So every time that it goes to him.
Exactly. That's the exchanges. There would be a purpose behind it. It wouldn't just be a magical item that does this exchange for no reason. But that's why, High Point, it's complicated in terms of what I feel is a justifiable thing.
In that
setting, a mage making this makes no sense in High Point. A mage saying, I'm going to make an item that makes money into power...
Gold. Yeah.
But it also turns money into power, doesn't make any sense. That's god level magic. Like the idea of money doesn't matter to gods, right? They could literally poof gold into existence. What does gold mean to them? But when you tithe them gold, you're tithing them ideological value. That is not only value to you, but it's the value of gold to every other peasant. And guess what you've done? You've taken it out of circulation. You have now lessened it, which makes what they have. Like it's the idea they could create all the gold they want, but they don't want to create gold. But if you give them gold out of a circulation that makes it more precious, that ideological value grows and their influence grows, right? It's all about ideological factors when it comes to gods. So your experience is actual energy, but but the gold you tied them is not nearly as valuable, but it does have intrinsic value to them due to its ideological value in the mortal world, right? Very convoluted way of saying it, but that's where for something like this, I'm just having that like without lore connecting it to why it's converting gold into power. That doesn't make sense to me because gold into power would only happen from an influence, divine or otherwise, right? So I just have a hard time thinking like, oh, okay, like this would fit as a standard item. It would definitely have to be written in a little bit deeper. Let's see. What did I miss in chat? The speed is meant to help with monks and rogues as they usually rely on movement speed to do their stuff. Yeah, that's what I was commenting on. Is it definitely? I like the fact that again, being the scales of balancing. Anybody who picks this up is going to be benefited by it, right? Depending on what you want to do. Especially, again, I really think it should also be made into a weapon for martial multiclassers, for martial spellcasters, because that would be so cool to make this a flail. So excess money. Just like what to do with excess money in terms of like that kind of it's a way to like burn it.
A way to use it where they wouldn't be using it otherwise.
But that's also, if you think about it too, it's like if you give us to BBEG, what BBEG doesn't want to hoard money? You know what I mean? It's like there's usually a lot of the times where it's like the idea of burning money is
Thanos didn't really care about anything except for killing people.
That's true.
Granted, the Joker, he literally burns money.
That's true. Milestone leveling is greater than XP per kill leveling. Debatable. But yeah, so it doesn't really fill any gaps. Doesn't need to be in high point, but it is a really good item. It's always difficult with these ones.
Why you gotta make it so difficult for us to choose?
It is really well balanced. I'd like to see a little bit more lore in it. It's never easy applying scores. Especially now that we've just had so many. It's like...
This is fair.
It's like they all can't be the same score.
I mean, some of them will have to be. Unless we want to go all the way up to a score from 1 to 100.
Oh, God, no. That would be way too much.
You get a 99.56.
Well, we'll say it's going to get some bonuses for being pretty well balanced, although I would say I really would like to see more of this effect, again, kind of strewn out, but I also understand the desire to have the legendary stand out a little bit more.
Agreed.
This is really well balanced. I really do like the boosted effects. Yeah, I think the biggest knock I'm going to make for it is just it's just that disconnect, because again, it's the review of fitting in high point. It's the exchange of money for power. There's just, I know that's kind of the trope, and it is really much a trope of exchanging money for power, and keeping the scales of equal offering. There's a disconnect there of how money and this power are of equal offering, and I think that's just where it's like it's hard to equate that to how that would fit in high point without, again, just completely redesigning the from the ground up where this came from and what it actually is intended to do. So that's, I think, the hardest part for that. Do we still update the leaderboard? We do still update the leaderboard. We just haven't updated it in the Discord yet for a while.
If you like, I can post that link that I showed you that just shows them what's out so far. What we've.
There's the read only one.
Yeah.
Is that the one? They can't filter that though yet, right?
Correct. They can't filter. They can just look at it, but they can look at it from top to bottom.
Yeah. Let's link that as well as like we can do another snapshot of the top of either the top rated ones or just whatever.
Okay.
But yeah, post that link in the Discord. So yeah, you guys can check this out. So it's a read-only link for you guys to check out the leaderboard that we're posting and all of the items there. Yeah, so I really want to give this one props for the creativity. I really like the balancing, but it really comes down to the lore behind it, and specifically the gold to power ratio is a little bit something that's hard for me. So yeah, I think this one is going to dip to a 5 out of 10 just because for high point, it's just going to take the hit for the money for power is a little bit too much outside of just how I would equate it. But it is going to get boosts for the creativity and the balancing. It just doesn't really have the place in high point, and it's just not really the approach that I would be able to take. And then just far too much would be changed for it to be done. But as a player, that's the other thing too. As a player, as unique as this is, I think I'd rather, to be completely honest, I'd rather see this on the team than in my hands. Like even though I do like rogue spellcasters and monk spellcasters. As a person, and I think I brought this up before too, it's like as a person who like builds the class, I'm gonna build my class, especially spellcasting class, not like, you know, from the top down like we've talked about, but I am gonna build it more specifically the way I want to play. And as cool as this item is, and as much as I would love this on the team to benefit the party, because I do think this is an amazing like party benefacting tool, I just don't see personally a huge drive for me to want to use it. You know what I mean? As a spellcaster, I'm usually not building characters that are interested in money as a spellcaster.
Right.
So that's just, again, very weird personal
it
quirks.
Seems like, yeah.
But I wouldn't normally create a spellcaster who has a lot of money to burn. And again, that's just, you know, a wizard type, right? Like, again, we could be thinking of paladins, but then we talked about it's not really perfectly designed for paladins and, what was the other one? Paladins and, warlocks just yet. So,
right.
You know, that needs a little bit of fixing there, but as, you know, I'm trying to think of like how I would use this, and I'm struggling. Even, you know, as is, or even with our changes, as cool as it is, I'd much rather be in the party that's getting these buffs or watching someone be like, oh, you're getting into +8 to AC.
Yeah.
Like, those are cool effects, but like, I'm trying to think of what build would I need to be in order to care about a +6 to my AC and only a +6 to my AC as a spellcaster. And I might be thinking too much as a spellcasting only. Mm-hmm. Like, I may be a fighter that has mage subclass or a mage secondary multi-class, and I may just use this, you know, as a weapon. Like, there are ways that I could do it, but the way I build spellcasters, if I'm going to be a spellcaster, it's either literally a secondhand thing. I just want a handful of spells for whatever class I'm focusing on, or I'm diving into like a custom spellcasting class. And I personally don't know how I would fit this in. If I came across this, obviously the team would take it, right? Like, obviously I would take it, but I would feel very out of place with it. As a spellcaster,
right,
carrying around a staff with scales, I would feel very awkward playing that character, and I think my character would feel very awkward with it. It's like, it would be a cool tool, and I would like it, but yeah, as a player, I want this on my team. I think that this in the party is absolutely amazing, and I know that there are a ton of people who would want to play this. I mean, look at these bonuses, dude. Like, I mean, again, like you even mentioned, a monk with a +10 speed.
Yeah, bro.
And then just being able to add that every time.
Crazy.
Like, that would be... I would love to have that. I would love to watch my monk just fly like a team up player.
And then just spin his staff around and just freaking beat the dickens out of people.
I would love to watch that. But again, mechanically, I wouldn't build a monk for this, right? My monk would be built differently, and then having this bonus would be cool, but it just... I don't know. It's not jiving with my character build. You would have
stumbled upon this build already, and then just happened to get this item.
Yeah, it's almost like getting this item in the wrong build. Not like every build, but in the wrong build, this item could almost not seem useless, but just seem almost just like, okay, I'll hold on to it because it's good. You know, because it's better.
Right.
But I just don't feel like it would feel natural, and maybe that's just where I'm kind of a little bit more hesitant on it. But otherwise, I mean, there really is nothing wrong with it. It's very well balanced. It's very well thought out. I love how character oriented it is in terms of it's not just about magic, right? It really does give you a boost to almost any character that you're playing with. So, yeah. And maybe it also comes down to the name of equal offering. And maybe I'm just getting caught up too on how 200 GP or any particular GP value equates, right? Like, it's almost like when I think of equal offering, I was almost thinking of like, I can sacrifice HP to take HP kind of thing. Like when I think of scales of equal offering, that's where my mind immediately goes, right? Like I put something there to like, take something. Even like I burn a spell slot to burn a spell slot. So I'm like, hey, I got a level 3 spell slot. I'm going to give it to my scale and BBEG, you've lost a level 3 scale. Like that would be some cool shit. Like literally
crazy.
You know what I mean? Like literal balancing the scales. You sacrifice, but you get to choose a target that must sacrifice the same. And imagine if you allowed that to be anything.
You know what would be crazy?
Like
if you did that, and then even if like and give the other person like a chance to like
save out of it.
Save out of it.
Yeah.
But even if they did save out of it, you still get something. You still get like a spell slot of half whatever you were willing to sacrifice back, or something like that.
Yeah. You know, yeah.
That would be...
Dude, can you imagine if you could do anything? Can you imagine just being like, you know what, guys, we're about to die. I got this. 13 intelligence. BBEG. Just all your teammates are about to die, and you're like, fuck it, at least I'll live as a vegetable, and just drop all but 1 intelligence and just burn it from the BBEG and just watch him crumble into a coma and you crumble into a coma, but the fight's over. Like, Bro. That's the name that I think of when I think of like scales of equal offering. I'm thinking of something devastating like that. That would be actually a really interesting.
I really like that.
Yeah. And that's where, you know, again, maybe I'm just being pedantic on words, but that's, I think, just where I'm just like, it's not quite coming together for me, you know, fully as an idea.
But okay, no. I like that. I think it was good. I think it was very good. It definitely gives me some ideas, especially these last couple of thought trains we've been going down. Give me a lot of really interesting ideas to do in the future. But yeah. No, it's that's not bad at all.
Yeah,
that's not bad at all.
Well, hopefully that gives you a little bit more insight with with everything I just described for you, Cosmic. Like I said, it's getting harder to rate these, but again, I think I'm getting a better understanding of again where that rating is coming from in terms of again validity in terms of what I could use in high point versus how much it would be of value in a game. And that's again, that's the hardest part of not giving scores of my personal opinion, but again of their relativity in terms of useful or not usefulness. I don't like to say usefulness, but their relative transition. If I were to be able to use it in high point, like in terms of
like how well does it translate to the world that you have built for yourself.
Exactly. Right. And that's like I think the hardest part with all of the homebrew reviews is not getting those two things convoluted, because I really do like ideas, but just because I would want to go and jump into someone's game and play it, or what I would think would be an interesting thing to run as a DM, doesn't necessarily mean it'll work in high point. For the reasons that I would put something in there. So yeah, that was really interesting. I really do. I would like to see a game with this in it and to see what other people would do, because that's the other thing too, is I'm also probably limited in just thinking about how many situations that a party would use it, and that's why I say that this is a great party item. This would almost be a great item again if it was a weapon and a spell focus, depending on who was holding it. This would almost be that item that the party could like hand over and share, almost like like different people could wield it at different times, depending on your party composition. So having this in the party would be interesting, but again, I think you said it right too, having the right build when you came across this, I think is more important than this just being a uber powerful item. But that's not necessarily a bad thing. I don't necessarily agree that all magical items should be like automatically uber beneficial to anyone or everyone in the party.
Yes.
Or every time you get magical items, everyone's going to get one that's beneficial.
Everyone's going to get something that like they want.
Yeah, sometimes I like giving items that are absolutely useless to the party, or literally just downright won't work for people. not necessarily to
figure out how
troll
to
them.
use it.
Yeah, but the idea of not every item has to come out and be perfect for your character.
Or obviously valuable.
But when you have an item like this and you aren't intending it to be, I don't want to say common, but when you're not intending this to be available, or you're not having multiple versions that people will are intended to upgrade through the campaign, if you are going to throw an item like this in, it definitely is a good idea to know how the party's working, and if you have someone in mind for it. This is definitely one of those items that I wouldn't want to throw on a roll table unless I knew beforehand this party was,
Right.
was going to benefit from it, right? It wouldn't just be a random item I think I would throw into. So maybe that's a little bit too, not necessarily situational, but it's definitely makes you want to be more aware of your players.
Very much so.
Before you want to just kind of throw an item like this in. But there's a lot of items I feel that I think majority of magical items from Wizards of the Coast are exactly like that, which is why I prefer creating my own magical items. And I think we've talked about this before too, but why I don't like going into like the treasure books. And why I like going in, why I don't want to go into the dungeon books and go into the treasure tables, or the books that just talk like Tasha's Cauldron or Xanther's Guide. Like, they have so many great named magical items that people talk about, and they're fantastical and they're great and I love them. But at the end of the day, it's that whole thing of so many of them feel just out of place, either in High Point or in most parties. And it's like, hey guys, here's this cool named item that I read about, and I'm going to throw it in here, and then it's like, yeah, it's powerful, but is it really
Do
for
we have
us?
use for it?
Yeah, and then eventually it's just kind of like it was kind of nice and powerful, but I didn't really feel like my character using it, right? It felt like more of a metagame thing. And that's where I tend to think about magical items. Is this a metagame tool? Is it for the players to know that it's the better item, or is it a narrative tool? Is it something that's really going to enrich the character and the player's experience? So I think that's also another balance, or not balancing, but that's another judgment area that I hold it on, is when I want to incorporate something into High Point, it's far more about the enrichment of the narrative and the gameplay than it would be, does it sound good or do I like the idea?
Very much so.
Because I even throw out ideas that I want in High Point because I'm just like, I can't fit it. Sorry.
Yeah.
I love it. I want it, but I can't fit it. It just doesn't make sense.
It just doesn't belong. It just doesn't belong.
You know how many IPs,
Put it somewhere else.
how many IPs and animes I've thrown out over the years because I'm just like, yeah, it's I've tried multiple times because I've never really fully watched it, but I've seen enough of Attack on Titan to be like, that would be interesting. It's never gonna work.
You talking about the ODS gear?
No. Just in general, trying to take the idea, the storming the castle, or the castle walls, the defense maneuvers, going against titans like that. There's a lot of different things I've thought about from that anime of trying to incorporate, because I'm like, oh, those are some cool ideas, how you were talking about, their gear sets, how they get around, how they fight. Even just how the walls are built, the whole lore behind the guys inside the walls, and there's the whole reason why they're tight. All of that sounds cool, but at the end of the day, no matter what angle I approach it, I'm just like, yeah, cool anime, not happening. It's not gonna fit. It's not how I do things in High Point. And it happens. How many years I've been shoehorning, and I've been hardcore trying to work DBZ into High Point. Do you know how?
You have the same class.
That's that. You know how long? Again, it's not even done yet. You know how long I've been working on that? It's so hard because there are so many times I get caught in something where I'm just like, this isn't High Point, and I'm like, okay, put it away. We'll come back to it, because I have to admit I can't go that route. But if that's the route I'm on, I have to just walk away and be like, nope, I can't. I can't do it right now because that's where my mind wants to go, and my mind's like, but that doesn't fit in High Point. So there's no point in trying, because I don't have fun trying to figure out how to make it work. In general, I want to make it work for my realm, right?
Yes.
So I could have probably had 4 or 5 different iterations of a Super Saiyan class that I could have, promoted on D&D Beyond or something. But at the end of the day, I don't care. I'll never touch those if it doesn't work in High Point, so I'm just going to move on.
Yes, very much so.
Cosmo says, what may be cool is if you use a melee weapon, and when it causes a wound, the blood can be used as an offering in some way.
I like that, especially if, maybe it has to do with, how much damage you did or whatever, that equal offering has some opposite effect. Maybe it heals you, or maybe it, I don't know.
Yeah, no, I mean, there's so many interesting things where it's like maybe if you're holding it and you have to do a spell save against an effect, if you like crit your save, it will do the opposite effect. So if it's necrotic damage, it'll heal you, or something like that. Like the idea of like you could crit save out of something, or just make it critical, and the thing will balance the scales almost. Yeah. There's a lot of interesting ideas for this idea of scales balancing things. Like there's so much that you could do in terms of either offering it something to get to get a near opposite effect, or just like, I mean, even as a defensive item, just something that would take in energy, evil energies, like anytime where it's like, again, anytime you have to spell save with this item, when you're holding this item, you have a chance to crit, and it'll do you a benefit instead of the negative. Otherwise, it's just a normal save for half damage.
Oh, right.
Like it doesn't do anything else, but if you crit, if you hit that magic number, it will actually balance the scales, right? So if, someone casts like Deafen on you, you actually now have heightened hearing. Or you could even have it like bounce back, so where if you crit,
I do like that.
Like what if it's it balances, right? So it's balancing the scale. So you're holding it, you crit save. Like you have a crit number that you can save on when you do that your saving throw, and if you crit, you'll still get hit with whatever your successful save is, but so will the target. So if you're deafened, but you like hit your crit number, they're also deafened.
Interesting.
So it's like it balancing the scales in terms of like you could use it not just offensively but defensively, and allow for that option of like, yeah, anything you throw at me, I'm gonna throw right back at you, as long as you reach some kind of threshold, or you do some sort of thing. Because it's like, I think it would be better than doing just like a dispel or an interrupt, right? Kind of feels better to be like, okay, we're gonna level the playing field here. You cast that, like, imagine you cast Spike Growth on me, it now is cast on you.
Ooh, that would be that would mess up the battlefield.
It would destroy things.
Up the battlefield, because Spike Growth don't care about who you are, friend or foe. You gonna get it.
So can you imagine, like, they throw it on your whole party, but now it's on their whole party. Like shit like that would be so fun.
That would be nuts.
Especially if it was somewhat chaotic like that, where it was like on a trigger and then the DM decided what was balanced. You know what I mean? Like, dude, what if like you could crit fail when casting spells, and then it would also do that?
Dude.
Or like you could have a crit failure where when you cast through it, it could balance the scales. You cast darkness, well, now you're in darkness. Like, there some unique ideas you could do with scales of balancing.
I do like that. And I listen, I live the Libra life, all right? Like, I really like being balanced, you know what I mean? Like, it's a very important mindset to me.
Yeah, not if someone can fly over the Spike Growth.
I mean, yes, but that's not always.
Yeah, Hecate, if you're going to work on a DBZ class, good luck. There's so much balancing to do, because I have found that either it becomes one of three things. It immediately becomes overpowered. It's usually the first thing that happens when you try to create a Saiyan class.
I mean, because most people are modeling it off of Goku.
Yeah, but when you really try to model it, one of two things happens. It either becomes depressingly underwhelming, because it never mechanically works out the right way, and it either becomes too detailed and too pedantic, because you're doing the whole, well, if you take too much damage, you get strong. Like, you're either going you have to die, you near die to get stronger, which sucks, or and I've tried so many different ways. You give them extra XP bonuses if they near die, or if they have two failed for every 2 failed saving throws.
Oh, death saves. Yeah.
Death saves. If they fail twice but then succeed, they double their XP gain that battle. Like, there's so many ways you could do it, but at the end of the day, it either becomes underwhelming, or all you've built is a flying monk. Tell me I'm wrong. Like, truly think about how you would equivalate a Super Saiyan progression, and either it's going to be underwhelming because it's either going to be complicated, or it's just not going to progress well, and it's just going to be like it's a Saiyan, but whatever, or you basically made a monk that can fly.
I mean, Monk already has a Super Saiyan-ish class where you have ki blasts and stuff like that, but
That's my point.
I mean,
unless you're going to model it after a very specific character in D&D or DBZ, unless it's a very, very specific character like Goku, Krillin, like unless you're going to go after their power sets and their specific skill sets and their design, building a Saiyan, like a race or a class, it's flying monk. Or if you try to change it too much,
I mean,
it's less than a flying monk. And if you train it two more, it basically doesn't break the game, but it basically just becomes a player that it's like you need a special campaign for it because it's too powerful. Like it's very difficult to find a good balance with a Saiyan because if you're not following one of the builds, right? If you're not following one of the characters, we don't really know the standard progression of a Saiyan. We only really know what the extremes can do.
I mean, shoot, let the characters be the subclass. Let the characters be the subclasses, and the main class is like all the, the different levels that you get. So that way you can still follow the progression of a specific character. But I mean, that's more 5th edition style. I don't know how well that would. You're still building it for 2nd edition. But
yeah, and that's just what it is. It's still, it's a cool concept. It's a cool idea, but to do it as a class, that's the problem. Is there needs to be something else in D&D because there are times where I think we've run into this a lot where we come up with a cool idea and unfortunately it only seems to work in a one shot or in like an isolated campaign because a lot of times we talk about something where it so borderlines being a background and a class that you end up with this amalgamation where it's like, I don't know what we're building anymore. Like it's saying, it's a race. But it's a class.
Yes.
How do you parse that out?
Yes.
Like, how do you truly decide if it's a race with racial abilities? That's one direction where it becomes underwhelming because in D&D, races barely give you anything.
Yeah.
So realistically,
it'll
be underwhelming because you can't properly scale it as a race. If you make it as a class, it again is just basically a flying monk because if you're trying to go with what a Saiyan can do, pretty much Saiyans can learn how to fly. They can learn how to control their energy. Not all of them learn ki blasts. Like, not all of them learn what Goku can do. Not all of them have energy blasts. Like, most of them who are trained as fighters can, and that's where you get the monk with ki blasts. But then you just give it flight, and what else do you have? Like, then you can give it potential transformation. So you give it, like, a werewolf form. Which is the giant monkey. So it's like you have these unique features, but it's like that sounds more like the race. Okay, so I can transform during a full moon. So that's a racial feature, right? That wouldn't be a class. That's a racial feature. So what am I getting as a class? Because even in the lore of DBZ, they had different types, right? They had different type class warriors, right? Like just Vegeta versus Goku. There are different styles of warriors, right? No matter what your class was. So would you say that they are two different classes or are they the same class?
What do you consider vampirism? A race or a class?
Neither.
Okay. So what category do the features that you get from that fall into?
They are modifiers of your natural state.
Okay.
So speed is a modifier of your base state. So while things would change, I don't look at them as like a race because while you can start out as it's more storytelling when you are a race of that. But typically vampirism and lycanthropy, they are afflictions. So they are kind of similar to a curse. They are modifiers to whatever you've already had. So typically if a player becomes a vampire, you are still what you are. You're still the fighter that you always were. You're still the mage that you always were. You're now just an undead version of that with a fuck ton of vampire powers now. And those powers don't replace anything you had, but you do have a new progression, right? Like being a vampire is a different type of like progression. So it would be closer to a class, but it doesn't replace anything because it's just an additive, right? You would level up as a vampire differently now than your class. You still level up in your class as you normally would, but you would also be separately leveling up your vampiric powers as you age and as you do things.
So is that intentional or because don't in High Point, you still have to give XP to specific things. And
typically, yes.
And you can have an excess of XP. So is vampirism something that you have to put XP in specifically?
Typically, no. It's usually time-based. It's basically the longer you're alive, the more you're powerful.
It's
but
like
you
overall
also
level almost.
But it's also an experience thing. Not XP. but an experience thing. Yes, over time, you will naturally become stronger as a vampire. You'll actually get, you'll just get more vampiric abilities. But it won't be the same as like, hey, you can just do this thing now. It's also, what have you done to learn what those things can do? So it's like, hey, you'll get some baselines, but if you never touch them, that's all you're ever going to get. But if you've been using them, you'll learn that there's more than just what we gave you. It's like a bullet point, but you're not reading the fine print until you read the bullet point, and then you're like, oh, that bullet point actually has brackets, and there's a fuck ton of other things.
There's some fine print hidden underneath there.
But that is locked behind you experiencing it. If I just say, hey, as a vampire, you're now 100 years old, you now move 10 feet faster. If you never think about that and just go, okay, cool, then that's all you're ever going to get. Every 100 years, you'll get an extra 10 feet. If you don't understand the mechanic behind that and manipulate that mechanic on why you're moving faster, you'll never get any other benefits from it, which is fine. You'll still get more powerful, but that's the psychology of a vampire is you get vampiric powers, but those powers really only get better when you nurture them. They will always get stronger, but they won't get better. Does that make sense?
Yes.
So that's why that's a unique situation, is like something like the affliction of vampirism. It's a modifier because things can get better or things can get stronger, but they won't necessarily get better until you've until you've experienced them. But good question on that particular one, because that's unique. But yeah, vampirism, you wouldn't be able to dump excess XP into your vampire powers. Those are pretty much locked by your age and what you've learned to do with the powers that you unlock. Similar to, if we think about it, it's very similar to like Dov's progression and how we're building the Bender class.
Okay.
You're learning how to deal with new materials, but you don't know what that means if you don't mess with it, right? You've learned way more about what manipulating sand can do for Dov than just having told someone you can manipulate sand, right?
Yes.
There's that subtext of, oh, wait a second, so I could like make walls stickier. I can make surfaces less smooth because I can manipulate sand underneath my feet and make it more friction. That's something that you learned purely by experience. I never told you that's an ability you have. I just said, you can control sand. You're the one who said, wait, if I can control sand and feel it, if I lift it up off the ground, can I tell where people are standing? You figured that on your own. I didn't tell you you can see footsteps. I just said you can control sand. And at any point, you will be able to control metal. You'll be able to control rocks. You'll be able to control, rare materials. Like, I can tell you all of that, but what that means is up to you to figure out, right? So same thing with vampires. That's why I say it's similar to a class, but it's basically just added onto your list of things that you can do.
Okay. No, I totally feel that.
Question: did you read the post about what happened last Monday? Like I said, Cosmic, I have not logged into, unless you're asking Kage, I have not logged into the Discord probably since last Wednesday or Thursday.
If you posted it in the DM questions, if you're referring to that, I haven't gone in there. If you're looking to ask me something in there, you can definitely tag me, because I usually leave those questions up to Vortex.
Yeah, I mean the DM one is mainly just for me, unless people tag you specifically as a DM. But those are meant for me. But I just since I think last Thursday I haven't even logged in because I was busy Thursday, busy most of Friday. Then I got sick, and then I've just basically haven't had the mindset to it. Yeah. But like I said, Cosmic, I will get to whatever's in the Discord that I missed tomorrow. Yeah, good question on the vampire thing though. I haven't talked about vampires in a long time.
Just because I feel like they kind of fall similar along to that same line, but I like your analogy to the Bender class as well, because it's very much a similar mindset too. So
yeah. Because a lot of things, they're not cookie cutter, but they're spelled out. They're very recipe like in terms of that, and sometimes I like those recipes to be more of a, all right, well, you're a cook. Make a roux, then move on to step 2. Right. That's like, well, what's a roux? Then you're not a cook. Get out of here, right? Like, and that's why I wouldn't just give a brand new player in High Point a Bender class. Like, this.
Yeah.
You had to fight to have the Bender class, but you would also worked with me enough before we started playing to understand the mechanics and the rules of High Point.
Right.
And there was a special circumstances there. But now that we've built that out, not anybody's just going to be able to jump into that, because it's okay, it's going to be a lot more trial and error. You're not just going to be handed everything you can do, and then you get to decide min-maxing, oh, here's all the powers I'm going to use. It's very much, I believe that it makes it more of a unique gameplay, because like we see in the show, every bender is different. Every bender, yeah, you might learn some of the same techniques and some of the same basics. Like we all went to school and learned, the same base arithmetic, but we all specialized in different fields. We all decided what we, where we wanted to go with that knowledge, and we all used it differently in our day-to-day life. So that's where I like those kind of classes where it takes the player it takes them on a unique experience because everything they do will be different than the person that did it before them, right? Like the next person to pick up a bender class in my realm will not get the same powers you did. Not because they're not allowed to. It's just they will have to come up with those powers. What controlling sand means to the next bender could mean they can parkour better. Or what if they figure out, wait a second, if I'm in a desert, does that mean I can basically sand glide? Can I just sit there like I'm on like a skateboard,
a conveyor belt,
and just move the sand just enough to where I don't walk and I just glide? If they come up with that ability, awesome. Let's roll for it. If you do it enough times successfully, boom, it's now innate. And now you can just activate, because that's what I do with you. If you want something unique out of the power, roll for it. If you rolled so many times consecutively over the gaming period, it's now just a power you have. Like, I like that because that means that your character is going to be built separately. Now, I know a lot of people don't like that because, either they're, I think a lot of people don't like that idea. And regardless of what they say, why they don't, I think it's just the idea that a lot of people fear the creativity in terms of they don't think that they'll be that creative.
Yeah.
Or they're so used to just seeing the options that when offered the unlimited or the seemingly uncapped, it's not even too much for them. It's almost not like they're just like, but what does that mean?
I feel like a lot of people get that paralyzation of choice. It's like, I don't, where do I even begin? Where do I start? And
they're data deprived. They almost want all that info when in reality it's like, but that's the point. It's not meant to, you're not meant to know. Who knows what you're going to be interested in? What's your next hobby in 5 years? Who knows what your bender class will want at level 5? That's kind of why I like those classes, is it's meant to not force you to play it out, but it's meant you to think, what do you need? What is your character learning, and what benefits them, instead of, well, what do you just think sounds cool at level 5, so you've already had it planned in your head. Right. I kind of like the idea of walking through that and experimenting and learning, because again, learning through that experience, like learning a new ability in the middle of combat, because you're like, fuck it, I try this and it works, and you're just like, wait, that actually worked. It's like, not only will that lead to new ideas, but I think it will give them ideas of what they want to do with that character, like what matters. Like, we talked about this, building a character that you don't play. You keep building this ideal character, but you don't play them that way, right? And it's like, but you think it's cool, but that's not how the character is actually portrayed, or what the actions that you actually take. And that's kind of why I like this, because you get to craft your own abilities based on what you, the player, and you, the character, are going through and what you would do in battle, right? If you're a pocket sand kind of guy, you're going to use your power to be able to manipulate sand and throw it in their face. But if you're not that kind of guy and you want to move faster, you're going to be that kind of guy that says, how do I, make the ground more flat for me and harder for them, right? There's different abilities, and that's what I imagine benders do, right? When you see the anime and two benders fight, they're using different abilities against each other because they've learned different tactics for where they've come from.
Very much so.
And that's what I love, that idea of being able to have two people in the same class solve a problem in two completely different ways. And I don't feel like you get that if they built the classes side by side with all of the options in front of them. You know what I mean? Like, it's like that idea of, unless you fully built two different ways, you're not really going to come up with your own unique idea. You're just going to come up with the idea of, oh, well, that's what I built, so that's the power I have.
Right. Instead
of thinking, well, what is your character experience? What have they come through? What have you learned about your powers that could benefit you through this, instead of just looking through a list of what you know you can do?
That's very fair. That's very fair.
And I feel like it comes down to the same idea of why I prefer not to play with minis. I talked about this long time ago, man. This was last year. Oh, this is one of my first streams. Oh, but I talked about, it was like, I think it was the Lucifer. I think it was right around the time that we had Lucifer on the first time.
We had a whole stream talking about
bringing on minis and everything. Yeah, because he plays with them. But one of the arguments that I made against them, the reason why I'm not huge with playing with minis, is a lot of the times I end up getting too honed in on what I see, and not like, again, I prefer theater of the mind, because especially as a DM, because it's like, I don't need you guys to know every last detail of what I think is in the room. What I need you to know is what I need you to know is in the room. And then I kind of want you guys to imagine what the rest is in that room, because that allows you to fill in details that you might be able to use later, right? If I tell you you're in a giant, a giant, what looks like maybe an old ancient banquet hall with tapestries along the walls, and some overturned, benches and maybe what looks like some old decrepit tables. That's all I need you to know, because it paints the field of the room that you're walking in. I might tell you how big it is, might tell you how well lit it is, and if you're going to fight with enemies, right? Mm-hmm. But that gives the player, I don't need to spend 20 more minutes giving you everything I imagine in the room. But if you ask me at some point, oh my gosh, I'm going to climb up this, it's like, is the tapestry stable? And it's like, actually, yeah, surprisingly enough, as old as it is, it's really thick and still stable. You climb up and you ask me if there's chandeliers in the room. I didn't tell you there were chandeliers, and I didn't have to think about it, but it does, again, the way that I keep consistency with High Point, it's very quick for me to decide, does it make sense that there would be chandeliers in here? Maybe I already knew that there were chandeliers in here, it just wasn't of importance. But that's the opportunity for you guys to be like, to look at that situation. Whereas if I'm using minis, if I'm a player using minis, more times than not, I'm just looking at what's on the game board and imagining that's all I have. You know what I mean? I don't really fill in a lot of the blanks the more information I'm given.
Yeah.
Which I think is why I prefer Theater of the Mind, is because it makes me feel like I can fill in those gaps and be more part of the narrative, instead of just basically being like, here's everything. Your creativity isn't needed.
Right.
You know what I mean? And that's just that personal approach that I have when I'm a gamer, or when I'm a player, in terms of trying to make those things work for the narration. It's
I feel that.
So being able to kind of open it up and let players figure it out is one of those techniques I like, because I also get to learn how they think, what they're interested in doing in the game, and it gives me new ideas too, new things that I could think of a ton of ways for that class to work. But something like a bender class is so varied, I think it would be a shame to just be like, here's all it can do.
Right.
You know what I mean? I like the idea of vague description of power, and then it's up to DM and player to discuss the extent of what that power can do, right? You using pockets of sand from the ground to put underneath your foot as you step on a wall to make more friction.
Right.
That fell within the ability of, you can manipulate up to a pound of sand within 10 feet of you, right? That it fit all of the criteria of the power, but that didn't need to be a stated, all benders can do this.
Yeah, very much so.
Why would, it's almost like I can do that. Well, then I'll just do that. It's like, but what, you could do your own thing. You know what I mean?
You could do a lot of other things.
We talked about, can I just use a conveyor belt? Can I just be, if I'm on a sand dune, can I basically just move enough sand that I'm just cruising? Dovd may never have thought of that, but it's that'd be the cool idea. He meets another bender, another player bender, who does that, and he's like, wait, how do you do that? Teach me, right? And then you guys realize you can do different things, and you've learned completely different paths. I think that's more exciting, because then you get to be like, oh, well, what have you figured out? And then gives you new ideas, right? But two different philosophies of playing. You know what I mean? That's two completely different philosophies.
Very much so.
Some people like to know exactly what's available, and some people like to just figure it out as they go.
Yeah.
And, I guess finding the right playing group is what you got to do with that one.
Yeah, 100%.
I think that's going to be it, though, for us. I think that's enough tangents for us tonight.
Tangents.
2 hours, 45 minutes. Not bad. Not bad after being sick, but so it's unfortunate that our count is off, but we are back on our regularly scheduled programming. No more cancellations in the near future that I know of. You plan on being here on Friday? You're remoting in?
Let me get back to you. I need to make sure.
So this Friday, I think we will pick up where we were going to last week. So main topic will be the history of ritual casting. Mm-hmm. But we will have a secondary topic, because I don't think that's going to get us very far. So the other topic, it was ritual casting, and
did we post that in the?
No, but we have the two topics in the Discord. I don't remember what the other topic was. I forgot so much this weekend.
That is all right.
But yeah, it was supposed to be ritual casting, as the first topic. No, I want to go to stream topics. Oh, and Simulacrum.
That's right.
That's right. So we are going to start on Friday. We will start with the topic of the history of virtual casting. And if we get through that whole topic and it's the full stream, awesome. If not, we will then do a secondary one, which would be kind of cool because, you know, for YouTube purposes, getting 2 videos out of a single live stream would be a benefit.
Right.
So I don't mind splitting that particular deeper discussion. So if we still have time, we will be also diving into the history of the spell Simulacrum, where it started, all of its variations, and just talking about its usefulness. You know, is it useful? You know, all of the ways that it can be, you know, used and abused, and we'll have some fun with that.
No doubt.
Otherwise, I think that's going to be it for us. We thank you all for joining us. We had so many people in the chat. It was so exciting to see at least 3 people. Like it is phenomenal to see that. I think
we getting up there.
Yeah, we are well on our way. Still 8 episodes away, so 1 month away from 100th episode.
Let's do this.
So y'all be here for that. But yeah, we had so many people. I mean, let's see. Serotonin and Cosmic started it out today. And then we had Hecate join in a little bit later, which was fantastic to see them. Is that... No, that was you in the class. Okay.
Yeah.
So it was just, okay. So we had Cosmic, we had Hecate, we had Serotonin in the chat. That was fantastic. Thank you guys for joining us. It's always fantastic to have you guys there keeping us company. And it's always good to hear from you guys, especially when we're reviewing your items. But yeah, that's going to be it. Now that we're all back together, we're going to be, good for our future streams. So we will be back on Friday, 7:30 Pacific Standard Time, as always, and then back next Monday at 7 o'clock. What is our next item for next week?
Next week's item. Let me go take a gander real quick here. You're over it.
I don't know anymore. I just
listen.
He does all the work, and I just show up.
It's kind of nice to get surprised. Next week we have a re-review. We are doing Hisbor's Godly Entertainment resubmission.
Oh,
so
okay.
He's got 2
another homebrew showcase, right?
But we were thinking about doing both of them in the same one, but looking at them,
looks like they went a little bit far.
We'll see how far we get through this first one.
Quite a lot of changes, it looks like.
And if we want to, and if we have enough time to, we think we can add the other one on, sure. But
we'll see
right now, we're just playing it safe. That's all it is.
Yeah, no,
just
not a problem. So we will have another homebrew showcase where we re-review Godly Entertainment, the specialized sublist class.
This was a homebrew showcase.
Yes, this is the showcase that we're just going to talk about. Either custom campaign modules, or less universal D&D mechanics. Things that are just going to be a little bit more of a showcase and a highlight than they would be a review, since they don't really fall within the same boundaries as most items. So if that sounds exciting, join us next Monday. If you guys liked what you saw today and you missed anything, or if you want to see any of our other live streams, we do have a VODs channel on YouTube. I will post that in the chat right now if you want to go see any of our previous episodes. If you want to join our community and you want to chat with us off stream, or if you want to provide us ideas, topics, questions, or your own homebrew review for Monday, you can join the Discord. I will post that as well in the chat. I think I did that backwards, actually. But that's fine. Both of those links are in the chat. If you want to join the Discord, that would be fantastic. But yeah, we really do appreciate you guys. Leave a comment on YouTube. Let us know what you guys thought about today's episode, what you guys thought about our review. If you agreed, disagreed, or if you have any other suggestions that you might change up for this particular spell focus. But otherwise, it's been fantastic. I hope you all had a great weekend, and I hope you have a good week ahead of you. We'll be back on Friday, y'all. Have a good night, and cheers.
Deuces, my friends.